That's all. Good evening, everyone. We join you from our transit center, temporary location. City council chambers are being renovated. So the next few meetings, we will be broadcasting from the transit center. So please bear with us. We are working through the logistical challenges of having you join us remotely. I would like to call to order Monday, August 9th, Fayetteville City Council Meeting. At this time, we'll have the invocation. Asking we please stand for the prayer, following which if we can repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. And with that, I'll ask colleague, Councilmember DJ Hare, Minister Hare, if he could give us our invocation.
Thank you, Mayor. Let us bow our heads. Lord, once again, we thank you for this opportunity to just say thank you. We thank you for blessing us, Father, for taking us through this part of the week thus far, Monday. Thank you for taking us through the weekend. Father, we also thank you for giving us the opportunity to go through the business for the citizens of Fayetteville. We ask you, Father, to let us move with patience and understandings of the concerns that each citizen and each item may have. And we just ask you for a blessing tonight. We ask you to continue to bless our citizens across the city of Fayetteville. Father, we also ask them to open up their hearts to those concerning receiving vaccines as our COVID-19 numbers continue to rise in the city of Fayetteville. So we ask you right now, Father, to put a special heart of opening on the citizens to make that great decision. And we just thank you for so much. And all of these things, Father, we ask you in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Councilmember Hare, for prayer. Wise words as we will hear tonight during our announcement session. It's coming up in just a moment. We'll hear an update from Mr. Scott Bullard for COVID-19. As Councilmember Hare included in his prayer, we're at a critical moment in our community, not just in the city of Fayetteville, but throughout our state and our nation, where the unvaccinated numbers of contagiousness are rising with COVID and the new Delta strain. So we encourage you to ask your family and friends, and if you haven't been vaccinated, we encourage you to please consider doing so. It's a critical time in our community. Mr. Bullock, how are you, sir?
I'm doing well, sir. I hope everyone here is. Any guesses about what today is under our state of emergency?
400 and something.
Today, 512.
Wow.
512 days. If we kind of roll back to the short game here, about the middle of July, we saw a resurgence to where we were having 1,000 daily cases in the state, which was way up from where we were before the fourth holiday. Over the weekend, Saturday broke 5,000, and Sunday over 6,000, just narrowly missing 7,000 daily cases. Several of my colleagues typically talk about where's the end game and the end point for this. I have no clue. I just know that we're not where we want to be. And the only thing at our disposal right now to help our case is what you just so eloquently mentioned, is vaccination. I know my colleagues at Cape Fear Valley Medical Center are seeing a lot of younger people without pre-existing conditions getting sick and having some bad outcomes that simply don't have any other health problems. other than lack of vaccination. And that's something we're all very worried about. I will be subject to any questions you might have. I've got information, but I think most everybody is aware of it. At the city on the 2nd of August, we went back to our mandatory mask mandate. As a precaution, to do our part, regardless of your status. And short of that, I think we will see some new ground cloud workplace nationwide with requirements by employers to follow suit, not only with their employees, but with patrons. So with that being said, I'll be glad to address anything you might have if I can.
Thank you, Mr. Bullock. Any questions, Councilman Hare?
Mr. Bullock, as we were talking before we came into the 7 p.m. meeting, and you mentioned a little bit about mask wearing. Where do you think we need to be here in the city of Fayetteville as far as our citizens for our local municipality?
Well, I think there are measures in place, and I think it's prudent for people to follow those measures, not unlike what we're doing with this chamber here. If you come into a building, we're going to be in close quarters, we should mask up, regardless of our status, whether or not we're vaccinated or not. But I think there's also some things that we've already proven that we can do as far as the distancing. I'm not discouraging people from going to, say, an event, but don't crowd up on each other. If you can do something outdoors, preferably, because it's beautiful this time of year, let's spread out. I think the information that has been passed over and over again about congregating with people that are not a part of your household, we need to spread out. We were doing great before the 4th of July, and now things have kind of caught up. Now I kind of hold my breath. What does it look like to go from today to Labor Day, the last hurrah of summer? And I'm troubled by that. I'm also troubled because my crystal ball does not afford me to look at the 23rd of this month with school starting. I don't know what that picture looks like. But to your point and to your question, sir, we've proven we can use this and use it well. We've just got to get back in the habit.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Bullock? Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Fuller. My question is, I heard you say something about businesses, about asking for vaccinations. Did I hear that right, or did I?
Yes, ma'am. There's a trend that's starting to pop up nationwide where, and I'll just cite the one that I'm most familiar with over the weekend. There was a bar in Raleigh that carded people, not that you're over 21, but by vaccination status, and then use that to determine whether or not you were admitted into the establishment. I'm not advocating that, but my point is things are going to pop up and solutions will derive themselves out of necessity of trying to separate groups. And we'll see it in the workplace first.
Yeah, absolutely, and I appreciate you bringing that up. So I guess my question is, can a business owner say to a customer that walks in to say, if you have not been vaccinated, we cannot serve you?
Not a lawyer, but I think we've already seen that start to occur in some form. I think there are different shades of how we can do a good job with that. One of them, and one that I would dwell on with the mask, is rather than single out groups, we just all wear it, like we're in here tonight.
Right.
That kind of takes the pressure off some of that. And by the same token, I want to stand here and champion the fact that if somebody is on the fence and they're kind of leaning towards getting vaccinated, I don't want to do anything to disrupt that. And I'm proud to tell you, in this past week, I've had conversations with people of my generation and younger that because they have school children that are pulling on them to get it done, they're leaning in that direction now, and they're going to go with their youngster, teenager, or adolescent, and do it together. What a powerful thing.
Thank you.
Councilman Wright?
Yes, sir. Thank you for that information. The question would be, if someone had a notion to take the vaccine, what is the easiest way for them to do that, and the location? Or what would you suggest for the listening audience, if they wanted to go take a vaccine, where would you suggest that they go?
Yeah, there's a locator that the State Department of Health and Human Services has on their website that you just simply put your zip code in. Take your shot, find your spot, and it will direct you to a number of places. It will actually pick up every single possible establishment, from your corner drugstore to private providers. It'll have the whole gamut listed there. And I just mentioned a word, if you have a private provider, call them first, especially if they've got it in the office and they can just see you for the sake of just giving you a shot. If that doesn't work, all of these chain drugstores, CVS, Walmart, Walgreens, the list is endless. Fayetteville State's still doing them. They were doing them 1 day a week on Thursdays. Don't hold me to the schedule, but there are places that have been doing them for a long time now that are still marching on. The health department as well. They would love to get you to roll up your sleeve. And I can't keep track of the pop-up clinics. A lot of houses of worship have taken to that strategy, and it's a wonderful strategy. We don't want anybody out there to feel like they don't have the option or the availability of vaccine, because it's there. The time is now.
Thank you, Councilman Wright. Thank you, Mr. Bullock, for that update. We will check in with you, and certainly, folks, 500 days into this pandemic, we really need you to help us put this in our rearview mirror. So look forward to checking in with you again, sir.
Thank you.
Council, this past week, we celebrated the life of one of our own colleagues, Councilmember Bill Chris, who had such a tremendous impact on the city, community, true servant leader. So now we would like to pause for just a moment and play a little video that's been put together to remember some of the greatest moments of Councilmember Chris. So, go to our TT.
You see, without birth, we're destined to die, but between the cradle and the grave, the relevance of a man may well be expressed not in how he died, but in how he lived his life.
And that I will faithfully discharge
The
duties of my office
duties of my office
as council member
as council member
for the city of Fayetteville,
for the city of Fayetteville,
North Carolina.
North Carolina.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
I am sometimes asked why I want to serve on council. The answer is simply because I love people, and more importantly, I love this city. It's my home, it's my refuge, it's my castle, my retreat, it's my haven. If I might paraphrase Helen Keller, she said something about it's not the things that you can see and touch, but it's those things that are in your heart. And Fayetteville is in my heart, as I know it is in yours as well. But my vision is beyond I and is beyond ego. My vision is a place for our children to return home to and find a city that is an oasis, a city that welcomes them with opportunity. Some of you may have heard Will Allen Drumgoole's poetic gem, The Bridge Builder. It tells the story of an old man who walked a lone highway and came at night to a chasm, vast, deep, and wide. The old man, because of his vast experience, had little trouble crossing the sullen stream, but when he was safe on the other side, he turned to build a bridge to span the tide. "Old man," said a fellow pilgrim near, "you're wasting strength with your building here. Your journey will end with the ending day, and you never again must pass this way. You've crossed the chasm deep and wide. Why build this bridge at eventide? And the builder lifted his old gray eyes and head, and he said, "Good friend, in the path I have come," he said, "there followeth after me today a youth whose feet must pass this way. This chasm that has been naught to me, to that fair-haired youth may a pitfall be. He too must cross in the twilight dim, good friend. I'm building this bridge for him. I'm building the bridge for him." It's 12 years I've used language and action to further the progress of this city. I believe my voice was heard, and I know I have more days behind me than in front of me, and I know that when I've crossed over, my footprint will still be woven in the sands of this city. And yes, I know that winds will come and slowly blow the residue of my existence away, grain by grain, but many will know that Bill Chris was here. And I just wanted to do God's will and improve the human condition in this great city. I leave you with confidence that I gave all of me, and it was a joy. Don't let it be forgot. For one brief shining moment, there was a place called Camelot. This, Mr. Mayor, has been my Camelot. With that, I motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Rest well, Councilman Chris. Thank you for your years of service, what you contributed to this community. At this time, we will ask that Tranika Fuller, Ms. Tranika Fuller, Director of Education, and Ms. Jenny Long, Director of Career Services for Middlemont College, share just a few moments with us. Are they joining us via Zoom?
Yes, sir. I am pulling them in right now.
Good evening. I'm Ms. Tranika Fuller. I'm the Director of
How are
Education.
you?
Thanks for inviting us this evening. I'm the Director of Education at Middlemont College.
Ms. Long, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Thank you.
Can't hear them, though. 1 second, Mayor. I got it. This got turned off. Try now.
Hello?
Hello, can you hear us? Uh-oh. Let's see.
Ms. Long, can you hear us?
I can hear you.
All right, we can hear you as well. How are you?
Can you hear me?
Ms. Fuller, are you there?
I am here.
Hear her, we don't see her, but we have you loud and clear. Your floor. Good to see you again.
Great, thank you. Thanks for having us. I am Ms. Fuller. I'm the Director of Education at Middlemont College here in Fayetteville, along with my former colleague and Director of Career Services, Ms. Jenny Long. We're super excited about being on the call today. Thanks for inviting us. And just a little bit about Middlemont College here in Fayetteville. We are a for-profit private institution. We offer programs, short-term programs. Our goal is to put people to work. We are a non-traditional school as we kind of walk them through the processes of career training. So myself, being the Director of Education, is super important and to ensure that they get the skills needed to get a job. Ms. Jenny, her role is to assist them throughout their program, 12 to 15 months, to ensure that they're ready for the workforce. The programs that we offer here are CDL, which is our #1 program. Why it's the #1 program, we get a lot of word of mouth feedback and foot traffic for this program, as CDL jobs are right now really really high in demand. We also offer medical clinical assisting, medical billing and coding, short-term programs, 12 to 15 months. We also offer an associate's degree in criminal justice. And now our newly launched program, which is a diploma in business studies, which is a 50-week program as well. I'm going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Ms. Jenny Long, to talk about her role as Director of Career Services.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jenny Long. I am the Director of Career Services here at Miller Mock College. My role is to work with each individual student until they become a graduate and after. What I do is resume building, thank you letters, mock interviewing. I set them up with survival jobs while they're in school. And also we work with them until they are placed in a training related field and even after. So our students are, we can't say guaranteed a job, but we can say we will work with them until they are in a job in their field. We also do a platform we participate in called Career Edge, and this sets them up for an e-portfolio for the long run that companies can click on a website on their resume and have everything from their academic achievement on there, their academic excellence, their attendance. It has everything needed for the resume, as well as anything that they have done in school that pertains to their training, such as if our medical assistants have done some work inside a classroom, that could be on there as well. Like I said, we're looking forward to hopefully having companies participate and you guys kind of giving us some feedback on what you would like to see our school do. And that's it. I'll turn it back to Ms. Fuller.
Thank you guys so much. Did have an opportunity to meet with you. I think it's very important that we continue to train as many of our citizens, prepare them for the workforce as possible. So thank you for the role you play in that and for coming to brief City Council. Certainly the city encourages higher education and job training, enhanced skill sets. So thank you for that. Thank you all for coming to speak with us a few minutes tonight. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We look forward to you as well.
Council, at this time, I'll go to Councilmember Ingram, who has an announcement before we move to City Manager's report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have about 4 quick announcements. Am I able to be heard okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, thank you. So as I think Mr. Scott Billard mentioned earlier, Delta variant COVID numbers are going back up. And so this weekend, the city has joined forces with Healthier Together. There will be a vaccination clinic at the Fast Transit Center, 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. If you are in need of assistance with getting transportation, we are still offering free passes for buses. So you can come get your vaccine. We're not forcing anybody. We're just offering a space for individuals to come get their vaccine. There will be the Pfizer for children as well if parents are seeking to get their children vaccinated as well. So that is 10 to 3 this Saturday, the 14th. The second one is there are 2 great young ladies in this community that have put together an event. It'll be a Stop the Violence community event called Heal the Veil, and that will also be August 14th from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. And so want to make sure we provide support to them as we see our crime rates, violent crime rates are going up, especially gun violence. And when people take time to take their personal time to make some events like this happen, we want to definitely show support to that. And finally, Gotcha Back to School Kickoff will be happening on Sunday at Fayetteville State University at 11 a.m. where teachers, students, most specifically children, can come and get their school supplies, backpacks, and whatever they need to start the school year confidently. And last but not least, as I stated last council meeting or one before, we are seeing a lot of move outs. And we at the city have done a really great job with trying to push, keeping our communities clean. Whatever the reason of the move out is, whether it's, rent rates going up, or you can't really afford the rental rates anymore. And that is caused by some landlords evicting for those that are not covered by the moratorium that was in place or still is in place. We do have the RAP program. And if you call 1-888-495-7710, you can get rental assistance and utility assistance. You don't have to have COVID to receive that assistance. It is for anyone who is in need of rental and utility assistance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ingram. Councilmember Hare.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to inform citizens that tomorrow, Tuesday, at Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church on Murchison Road, the American Red Cross and Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated, Beta Chi, and the gentlemen of TGG will be partnering in a blood drive that will be from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m. That's at Mount Sinai Missionary Baptist Church off of Murchison Road, directly across the street from Fayetteville State University's football field. We invite folk to come out and, of course, to support, but to also come out and contribute blood, as I will be giving also tomorrow. As we move into September, it is sickle cell anemia month, and one of the slowest blood giving is that for people of color. So we're just asking everyone that is interested to please come out and partake in giving life. 1 pint of blood saves 3 lives. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Thank you, sir. Good information to pass on, and good Lord made blood crimson color, I believe. But
Yes.
all right. So we'll move on
Yes, sir,
to
it is.
City Manager's report, brief report, Mr. Manager.
Yes, sir. Let me get my file. If consistent with what Councilman Ingram mentioned about the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, consistent with what Councilman Ingram mentioned about the Emergency Rental Assistance Program, I'd ask Chris Cawley to come up and give council an overview of where we are and deploying the money that has been sent to us by the federal government and the state. And thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. So the city manager has asked me to come forward tonight and brief everyone on the emergency rental assistance program. So just a quick snapshot of where we are right now, and we'll get into some details and then some questions. But the city of Fayetteville quickly and in step with peer cities analyzed the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021 to create a program assisting residents at risk of eviction in partnership with Cumberland County. The total amount of funds are unprecedented, and infrastructure across the nation is not in place for this type of effort. But Fayetteville is a can-do city, and we'll always find a way to help those most in need. Fayetteville has a strong partner with IEM, our third-party contractor who's helping run this program for us, and is expanding that relationship locally by allowing funds to be used for eviction prevention at the courthouse and a broader housing stability services category using partnerships with local nonprofits. Just a couple of hot points that I want council to consider as you're talking in the community. We launched this program on June 1st with a custom website, a professionally staffed call center, and 6 locally hired case managers. This was a little bit later than we anticipated, as the magnitude of this effort is shown by the fact that our initial vendor recognized that they were not able to stand up to the magnitude that we needed, and they very graciously bowed out. We lost a little bit of time getting to our vendor that we have now. By the end of June, after that first month of launch, we had engaged with over 3,800 residents, and we're receiving over 1,000 calls daily in the call center. While we were managing that onslaught of interest and questions and concerns from members of the community, we also abided by the federal regulations to prioritize the hardest hit and most vulnerable families that came to us. And so in that first month, while we were dealing with all of the applications that were coming in, helping people fill out those applications, taking those phone calls, prioritizing and triaging, we also helped 22 of our most vulnerable families with rent stabilization. At the same time, the city and the county team began working with large landlords of market rate rentals and affordable complexes that are subsidized by the federal government to help prevent mass eviction. And so we specifically targeted those large landlords who we could engage with, have conversations, help them understand the program, and help get the message out. We also partnered with the Apartment Association and several other organizations that would help spread that word far and wide. In the second month, we had about 1,800 additional applicants engaged on the website. As we were dealing with about 690 calls daily on average, we were also prioritizing and triaging those hardest hit families because of that federal rule. In the previous month, we were able to issue payments to 166 most vulnerable families. So that brought us to a total for those last 2 months of most vulnerable families of 188 families that were helped to stay in their homes. Early on, about 46% of folks who came to do an application abandoned that application after they got there. And so we dug in with our partner and with the county and tried to figure out what was happening. And what we found was that individuals applying thought that they had to have had COVID and contracted COVID in order to apply for the money. The question that the application asked is, have you been impacted by COVID? I'd be hard pressed to find somebody that I've met in the past year who has not been impacted by COVID. Due to our educational and marketing efforts, the next month saw a 9% increase in completed applications rather than abandonments. So I think we saw some future growth. But more importantly, that is living proof of the continuous improvement and analysis that our teams with the county and our partner and the city are putting into place on a daily basis. We have coordinated with larger landlords in order to market and educate the program and to help smaller landlords understand that this is not something that is so arduous that you have to be afraid of. This is cheaper than an eviction process. You can get back rent, which you cannot do through an eviction process. We talked about the prioritization of the first 30 or 45 days being the hardest hit families. So unfortunately, that prioritization caused a couple of folks in the community to complain that they had not gotten an update in what they felt like was a timely manner. And that's totally understandable. We did have to focus not on that first in and first out, but on who needed it the most and who needed it the fastest. And so now we have moved to that first in and first out model. Currently, eligible applicants are being processed through the system on a daily basis. Staff continues to monitor the flow of applicants through the system to address any timeliness issues before they arise.
Mr. Colley, I think some of the viewing audience said your mic is either muted or not on. You can't hear what you're saying.
Will you
I was just,
use the green light on?
yeah, the green light's on. I was a little low, so maybe here we can
I
get.
don't know, I see a red light.
Oh, yeah, the podium is, yeah. All right, there we go. Okay, I think we're good to go. So most recently, a product of that regular review and continuous improvement that we're seeing with the program is we look for any red tape we can find. I know government loves red tape. We actually don't. We just have to deal with it. And so we find those areas and we try to remove that. So for example, we had a program that is a best practice to sign kind of an agreement between the renter and the landlord. It wasn't required by the grant. And so we decided that we would issue award notices instead. That renter and that landlord still get the same information, but we don't have to wait for all parties to sign this document before we issue payment. So that's going to speed up things a little bit for us. We made that change about a week and a half ago. On top of that, we've got some program design changes that are planned. And if y'all bear with me, I know that this is supposed to be quick. This is the last little bit here. This is the best part of it, right? So we've been meeting with Treasury on an almost weekly basis where they have trading and information. The new information that they just came out with was that we were eligible to take 10% of our grant and allocate it towards what's called housing stability services. So this is not just, we got a website and a call center, call us. This is where we can go out there and help people and find some little bit of struggle. We're planning to put staff at the courthouse. Now, we can't call it a diversion program because it's not officially a diversion program, but we are going to have local judges who refer landlords and renters to us to try to help them out before they follow through with evictions. We're also going to staff 13 additional local case managers. So remember, the original intent here, we have 6 case managers. Now we're going to more than double that, put more people out on the street to do more outreach and engagement. And we're using our not-for-profit network as part of that system. So where we're at right now is we've spent just shy of $1 million. The federal government gave us a lot of money. And so we're having to take a hard look and be creative about how we're going to continue to hit our goals and expand this program to make it happen. We are not unlike a lot of our peers in that this infrastructure, the level of rules and the level of individual case management that it takes to help folks that are at a period of crisis in their life. It takes a lot of time and energy and effort. And we just don't have that infrastructure in this country, much less in Fayetteville. But we're building that infrastructure, we're quickly getting money on the street, and we can make it happen, and we're going to find a way.
Thank you, Ms. Colley. Do have a couple of questions. And we have some online. We do have council members online. Who do we have? Council members Kinston, Ingram, and
Thanks, McLaughlin.
well, okay. So can you test your now?
Yeah,
I know
we're
you're
good.
turning your other mic. Is your other mic green?
Yeah, we're good.
Listen, artists saying they can't hear. But landlords, do landlords have to sign? These are some of the folk tales that are out there. If a landlord participates in this, does that prevent them from doing anything that forsakes any of their rights as a landlord?
So some communities have chosen to require landlords who receive funding to do things that the community has asked of them. That has not been the direction. Our direction was to help as many people as quickly as possible. So we are not requiring landlords to state any types of issues that they have, or we are requiring them to show proof that this person rents from you and that they're behind on rent. That's it.
Okay. And is there an income requirement? So in other words, do you have to make below a certain threshold in order to participate?
Yes, sir. That's a great question. So these programs are, a lot of people get surprised to hear that these programs are targeted towards the lowest income families in our community. The threshold is 80% of area median income. So it's somebody who only makes 80% of what the kind of the average is. Median is not quite the same. So what that translates to in real dollars is a little over $33,000 for a one-person household, and a little over $47,000 for a family of 4. So these programs are out there. If you know folks who work in hospitality, who work in like the service industry, most likely qualify for this program. So encourage them to.
Thank you. Councilmember Kinston.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And I'm going to ask this question because, as they say, if you ask not. So there was a fire this weekend at Kings Cross Apartments, and it had structural damage. I don't know the answer, so I'm going to ask and put this out there. Would this allow any of those residents to be able to qualify under this program now?
I'm not sure the fire does, council members. I did read that article and hear about that as well. We will absolutely follow up and see if we can reach out to the main company there.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Colley? All right, sir, well, we hope get money on the street if you need it.
Yeah.
$1 million. It's a good start.
All right, yes, sir. But thank you for the hard work on that. And you said you made a change within the last week that you saw increase something. Say that again.
So previously we had an agreement, a rental agreement that the landlord and the renter had to sign. We've changed that to an award notification. So that takes 2 signatures of tracking people down, and now we can get money out the door.
Okay, thank you, sir. All right, council item, Mr. Manager, is that it for you?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir, that's all.
All right. Item 6.0 is the approval of the agenda. Oh, Ms. McDonald, you're sitting there all modest. Well, we would like to congratulate Ms. McDonald, who has been named the president or the chair for North Carolina. Excuse me, president of the North Carolina Municipal Attorneys Association. Look at that. We congratulate you, ma'am, for that. Over 300. And our own here in Can-Do City. Can-Do. Is leading the pack, so thank you for that. I know you'll represent us well for the next year. I think your term is a year, right?
Yes.
All right, so we'll look forward to that. So, congratulations. Item 6.0 is approval of the agenda. Council, I know there was some modifications, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to pull 10.01 and 11.02. That is the request of the developer to pull that. So the developer can have time for the community and the developer to meet, to both understand what is to be built and to work out any questions or concerns.
If I could, Mayor Pro Tem, I think according to his email that we had, he wanted to go to September 21st. Are you aware of that?
Yes, sir. He wanted it to September 27th.
7th.
Yes, and thank you for that. And city manager, is that what?
It is it September?
Yeah. Mine says September 27th, 2021.
Yes, ma'am, and so it is, if I can, is the motion then to accept the agenda, but move those 2 items for those to September 27th?
Yes, sir.
Is that clear, ma'am?
All right, so there's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem to,
I had a question.
okay, hold on 1 second. So I have a motion, I'll come to you, Councilman Ingram. There's a motion, yours on the consent. Okay. There's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem to table items 10.01 and 11.02. There's a second by Councilmember Hare. Questions on the motion, Councilmember Ingram?
Never mind.
So Mayor, just to clarify, it is to approve the agenda.
With those modifications.
Correct.
Someone, back call.
Oh, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Yes, Mayor, I had my hand put it up just so I can, from our dinner meeting, I was requesting to pull item 7.07 and 7.08 just for discussion.
That's out of order.
I can-
Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, I'm coming to the consent section. I have your name down for those items.
Okay, I just want to make sure you guys saw my hand. Thank you.
I got you. Yes, ma'am. All right, so there's a motion on the floor by Mayor Pro Tem Jensen, seconded by Councilmember Hare. We've had discussion. Council, I'll look to you for your votes for approval with the modifications as mentioned. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin?
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to pull item.
Oh,
seven.
No, it's
Oh,
green.
I'm sorry, green.
That's okay. That's okay. I know we have a little delay on the online ability. So this is for a vote for approval of the agenda. Okay, Councilmember Ingram
Green.
and Councilmember Kinston.
Green.
Okay, all right, Madam Clerk, that is unanimous. Okay. All right. So trying to get our sound together. All right, consent item 7.0, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. For the consent, I would like to pull 7.07 and 7.08 just for general information for staff to just provide just a little bit more information for our listening audience, and to also seek council's support or suspend the rules at item 1 tonight regarding public safety.
Okay, so that's
That'd be a motion.
that is a motion. Okay, so we have can you restate that? Because we had a lot in there. So this is under consent. So 7.07 and 7.08 is a motion to pull those for a separate discussion, right?
To pull those two for a separate discussion, and to also suspend the rule to add a item request to the agenda regarding public safety.
I don't think we need the rules suspended. We're in a formal meeting, but you're trying to add to the agenda is what you're saying, a separate item?
I was asking to suspend the rule to add that to the agenda, to the agenda since it's not on there. Yes.
Well, we approved the agenda. The two items that you said, 7.07 and 8 are consent. So we're in that section now. So there's no problem with doing that. So maybe separate your ask so we can kind of deal with it that way. So maybe there's a motion to separate the items under the 7 section, which is 7.07 and 8, if that's acceptable, and then separate that from your other ask of council.
Okay, I would like to separate the two from the consent agenda, which is the 7.07, 7.08, and
Okay.
You need a motion to approve the consent agenda minus.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get to. All right. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, are you still there?
Yes, so again, a motion for the 7.07, 7.08. I'll go ahead with that motion. Then my second motion to be to add an item to the agenda.
Okay, so the motion that I understand you saying is to approve the consent with the exception of items 7.07 and 7.08, correct?
Correct, for information purpose, correct.
All right, Councilmember Davis, you had an item that you wanted for a separate discussion?
Mr. Mayor, Council, it will please the council, I'd like to pull item 7.05 and request that it be added to public forum at a later date.
All right, so if Councilmember Banks, since this is your motion, will you amend your motion to accept Councilmember Davis' addition of item 7.05?
Yes, I will amend my motion to include, yes.
All right, so there's a motion by Councilmember Banks McLaughlin to approve the consent with the exception of items 7.05, 7.07, and 7.08, seconded by Councilmember Davis. Any discussion on the motion? All right, council, I'll look to you for your votes on that. Show of hands. Councilmember Ingram, how do you vote?
Green.
Okay, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin?
Green.
Councilmember Kinston?
Green.
Great, all right, so motion carries, consent's approved. Item 7.05 is on the table. 7.07, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Wait a minute, Mayor. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I had a question.
Hold on. Give me 1 second, Councilmember Ingram. What are you saying, Councilmember? Madam Attorney?
My understanding was the motion was to pull those three.
They are?
Right, and so you would take them individually.
Oh, okay. So 7.05, he had mentioned tabling it, but I guess now
Yes.
it's just a separate action, so.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll start with that. So item 7.05, Councilmember Davis.
Yes, sir.
Before you do that, let me see, you had a question germane to what we were talking about, Councilmember Ingram?
So I was trying to understand, Councilman Banks McLaughlin's motion to the latter part. And, from my understanding, the acts would need to be to amend the agenda to maybe to, because he's trying to add an item. And I know you all discussed it during the dinner meeting, and I was just wanting to make sure I was understanding when are we getting to that part?
After we dispose of the consent section.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. So 7.05, Councilmember Davis.
Mayor, council, would please I'd like to make a motion that we table item 7.05 and schedule it later for a public forum.
Second.
Public hearing, my apologies.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Davis to table item 7.05, scheduled for a public hearing, and second by Councilmember Dawkins. Any discussion on the motion? All right, council, I'll look to you for a hand. All right, Councilmember Ingram,
Green.
Councilmember Banks McLaughlin,
Green.
Councilmember Kinston.
Green.
Okay, all right, motion carries. Item 7.07, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. For 7.07, that was the adoption of revenue fund project ordinance to appropriate a grant fund to the Fayetteville Police Department Crisis Intervention Program in Cumberland County Foundation. I see that we're awarded the $40,000 grant opportunity. So just for the audience to be able to kind of get a understanding of where those funds are going and what areas that we're going to target, because I know we target, there's a mental health piece as well as a homeless case management service. So I just want our staff members to kind of come up and kind of explain exactly where these funds are going for the listening audience.
Stand by just a second, Madam. Good evening. Can anyone hear me? Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Definitely, your mic's definitely not on.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me okay now? Councilman Banks, can you hear me
I can
okay?
hear you.
Okay, so, let me do one at a time, because I thought 07 was the juvenile restitution. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
Crisis intervention.
That was for the crisis intervention.
So the crisis intervention one is, we applied for, funding from Cumberland County Community Foundation in order to support our initiative of having a mental health individual work with the police department. What these funds will be doing is helping us get more training directly with the police department, as well as establishing almost like a strategic plan, how we're going to implement riding along, being aware, almost like a train-the-trainer situation for our police department. We already have a lot of individuals that are crisis intervention trained within the organization, but this is just going to expand it on the programs that we already have existing for this particular one.
You good, Councilmember Banks?
Yes, can you also just dive just a little bit as far as with the homeless case management service?
This doesn't have anything to do with that particular one, just has to do with training. But I'm sorry, ma'am. So it'll focus on any type of mental health awareness, any type of training. So that as we encounter anyone who might have mental health or issues or crisis that happen to be homeless, that'll equip us a lot better to be able to address those issues.
Okay, issues as far as providing resources for them to seek assistance. regarding mental health, or the actual case manager is gonna be the one who actually deals with that specific individual? Is it more, go ahead.
So I know words are important. Case manager, is not something that, as far as we'll be having within the police department. This particular grant, though, is for, funding for training for, individuals, specifically 9 individuals on the police department, as well as expanding, the possibility of having ride-alongs from, community care within the police department, having a resource, to tap into with community care, within the direct line within the police department. That's what this funding is.
Okay, I was trying to go back because I did see something that dealt with, where it mentioned homeless, case management.
It's probably because it has a community care associated with it, and because community care does a lot with, the homeless population. They will probably have a lot of, as a resource, like you said, is one of the optional resources for us within the police department to find, how we can connect and have, community care help us.
Okay.
The police department.
Okay, I understand. I'm looking at it right now. That's with the homeless case management service. It does talks about community care path project for assisting in transition from homelessness.
All right, well, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, we have to move on. You go to item 7.08. We've got a lot of items.
Do a motion to approve 7.
Oh, yeah. So we need, can you, make a motion to approve 7.07, Councilmember McLaughlin?
I will, but I still had a question, Mayor.
Okay.
I was just trying to get clarity, and so that the viewers are aware of where the $40,000 grant is going and how it's going to benefit our city.
Okay. What's your next question, ma'am?
She didn't finish answering my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it's for training. It's focused for training and utilizing the resources of community care. It's not. It's actually for training of 9 individuals and bringing that back so that we can do a train-the-trainer situation with the police department.
Okay, thank you, Chief, for the explanation. I would like to go ahead and make a motion to approve the 7.07 adoption of special revenue fund project.
Second.
So there's a motion by Councilmember Banks McLaughlin and seconded by Councilmember Ingram. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Council, look to you for votes. All right, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Okay, yes, Chief, this is for you again.
Councilmember, we're voting.
But it's green. I'm sorry, I'm used to being sitting there. It's green. I don't have a button, green.
All right, Councilmember Ingram.
Green.
Councilmember Kinston.
Green.
All right. Motion carries. Item 7.08, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you, Chief. This is for you again, with the adoption of special revenue fund project regarding juvenile restitution program. If you can just elaborate a bit.
Yes,
as far as how these funds are going to be determined and how it's spent.
Yes, ma'am. We've already been supporting this program with a individual. It calls for matching funds from the city and the police department. It allows for the courts to be able to target the age group of 11 to 17-year-olds and offer restitution options whenever they're having sentencing. So there's an individual that we already have hired within the police department that supports this program.
Okay, and thank you for that. And this is just for the citizens, because a lot of things that our police department do and funds that come in, some people aren't aware of with what's taking place. So that's why I wanted to have you highlight these 2 areas where funding is being provided. If there's not any questions, I would like to make a motion to approve 7.08 revenue fund project ordinance for the juvenile program.
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Councilmember Banks McLaughlin and seconded by Councilmember Wright. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Council, I'll look to you for your votes. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Green.
Councilmember Kinston,
Green.
Councilmember Ingram.
Green.
All right, carries unanimously. So Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, you had a second request.
Yes, I was seeking council support to add a item for tonight's agenda regarding public safety. And that's, ma'am.
All right, so the motion to add an item or to amend the approved agenda. Madam Attorney,
Second.
so it would take a supermajority to amend that, and I guess I'll ask the logistics if necessary. So, Madam Attorney, you can explain it once if passes how we do it.
Technically, it should have been done at,
Understood. Right.
approval of the agenda, but.
All right, so let's see if that's if it's necessary for you to help us figure that. So there's a motion by Councilmember.
Question on the motion.
All right, the motion by Councilmember Banks McLaughlin to add an item, and there's a second by Councilmember Ingram. And
Mayor.
question.
Excuse me, Mayor, if I can ask, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin to add some specificity to the motion, please.
Absolutely. So, okay, so as public safety is one of our goals for council.
Councilmember Banks, we can't discuss it until we approve if it's going to be discussed. So just, I think her question is, can you clarify exactly without getting into?
I don't think there's any clarity. I mean, it's regarding public safety. I mean, if you, council members want me to just go into a little bit of it, I mean, it's.
No, we can't do that. It's not on the scheduled agenda, so we got to get to that point. So.
Okay, what a clarity is I'm making a motion to be able to add this to agenda, and it's regarding public safety for our residents.
So we have a motion on the floor by Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, a second by Councilmember Ingram. Question, Councilmember Hare.
Thank you, Mayor. If I could direct my question to the city manager, when we were discussing, hearing a little bit about this request during our 6 p.m., I thought that you stated that there was going to be some follow-up that's going to be coming to us about.
Well, Councilmember Hare, we got to see if we're even entertaining this. So this motion is on the floor. The city council has an
Right, I
appetite.
understand that, but I was thinking, I thought I understood that something was coming back anyway.
Yeah, I think it would be, and that was kind of explained, but she wants to add it during the meeting. So now we have a motion on the floor, so we have to dispose of that.
Gotcha, sir.
Or either move that forward in order to get to the next step. So. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. This will take a supermajority in order to amend the published agenda. So council, there's a motion to add this item. Those who are in favor, hands. Councilmember Ingram.
Green.
Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Green.
And Councilmember Kinston.
Green.
Councilmember Davis. Green. Green. All right. Those opposed. Councilmembers Dawkins. All right, council, we gotta count those who are green. Again, let me run down the numbers. Councilmembers Ingram, green. Councilmembers Banks McLaughlin, green. Councilmembers Kinston, green. Councilmembers Davis, green. Councilmember Dawkins,
Red.
Councilmember Wright, green. Mayor Pro Tem Jensen.
Green.
Great.
Great. All right, so Madam Clerk, what's that number?
7-1. Oh,
Ma'am?
what was your vote, Mayor?
Yes, it was green.
Okay, then
What's the total?
it's 8-1.
No,
7-2. All right. All right, so item is added. It will be, Madam Clerk, how do we amend this to add this item to the end? But now, for the question that you had, Madam Attorney, procedurally, how do we do this?
Well, the motion
This
passed.
Item 11.05.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, but now, in light of that, Mr. Manager, you did have something, well, Council, first of all, we have a question on that, without getting into it. I guess you've spoken to the manager, Councilman Banks McLaughlin, about what it is.
Yes, excuse me, Mayor, everything, it did pass, so I guess the question is, where are we gonna, include this under what line item?
11.05, so we'll come to that in a bit. Once we get down to the 11 points. So item 8.0, staff reports, 8.01, the Fayetteville Police Department, second quarter review. And
Snuck up on me. I'm sorry. I apologize. All right, so good afternoon. All right. So this is as a reminder, I provide a review for quarterly, and this is the time period from January to June 30th. And how I try to stay consistent so we can follow apples to apples on each quarter. It's going to cover the statistics of crime trends, some of our strategies, and then our community engagement. So from January to June, our total crime, crimes against persons, is up less than 1%, 0.86%. And our crimes against property is down 18%. So we're giving us a total overall in crime, up to the first half of the year, down 13% overall. As we remember, I go over crimes against persons and break them down. So at that time period in June 30th, we had 23 homicides at that time compared to 16 at that time in 2020. Our rates were up. I'll go a little bit about that. What we've seen, is the rates that we're having are mostly relational. They've known people. We have an increase also in social media connects. We don't know if that's because things were closed up in the beginning of the year, but we've seen a lot of different people reporting people that they know and having a lot of rapes reported. Our aggravated assaults are up 5.5%. Other crimes against persons are down -2%. That's what gives us total overall difference of less than 1% is a 0.86. We shared before how our homicide unit investigates more than just the 23 homicides that's occurred in our city. They're responsible as a team for being deployed and looking into any type of death, to include overdoses, suicides, and so we've seen an increase in suicides. We've seen an increase in natural and accidental death. So you see the overall investigations of the homicide unit has had to investigate has increased by 18%. I'll break down typically aggravated assaults into figuring out the misdemeanors versus felony total. And we also look at, we've been monitoring domestic violence as part of aggravated assault to see if we drill down a little bit more, if there's a difference in those trends. So this is something different that you haven't seen before. And what I wanted to share, because we had a lot of different questions and why we focus on repeat offenders. And then one of the tools that we utilize within the court system is the ability to have electronic monitoring on violent offenders. So sometimes we make a request in the court system, sometimes it's provided to us, and sometimes they don't. It's up to the court system, the judge, and the attorneys to say whether or not they're going to put a monitor on an individual. So we wanted to share this because there's no way we can have a solid number, because sometimes people come off on electronic monitor throughout the month or not. But I wanted to share out of the 2020 numbers, which is in blue, and the 2021 numbers, which is in orange, we had an increase of individuals being placed on monitors compared to 2020. We know that's probably going to go with people not wanting to keep people in the jails. And then our aggravated assaults. So our aggravated assaults they were averaging 9 times more likely than 2020 numbers they put on a monitor. And so out of the average of 14 violent offenders each month in the first half of 2021 were put on electronic monitoring. Just a reminder, just because you're on a monitor does not mean that you're not going to do crime. I also wanted to share, this is a different chart, out of the homicide arrests that we've had year to date. We had 20 arrests. 11 of those had prior offenses on their record, and 6 of those 20 had prior violent offenses on the record. Only 3 of those arrested they were first-time offenders. I broke the same number down just for the second quarter of assaults. Individuals arrested for the assaults in our categories because it was a high number. So out of from April to June time period, out of the 198 individuals arrested, 23 of those had prior offenses on their record other than assaults. But 135 of those individuals had assault offenses on their record. 40 of those individuals were first-time offenders. I broke the same number down for second quarter just for our robbery suspects that were arrested. Out of 25 arrested individuals, 12 of those had prior offenses other than robbery, and 7 offenders had assaults on their record. 6 were first-time arrestees for robbery. So because I don't do this alone, I thought I'd bring in a couple of a little bit of team. I'll try to do this in the next quarter also. I'm gonna bring up Major Spadarico. Major Spadarico is part of he's responsible for all investigations in the police department, so.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Manager, and Council. You hear me a little better now? All right, so this slide we're looking at now, it reflects our ongoing partnership with our federal partners. I know Chief's talked about task force officers and our relationship with the FBI, the DEA, the ATF. And what you see down here in the lower right corner, in the last quarter, we had 10 individuals sentenced or incarcerated for violent crimes, federally sentenced. 23 are currently pending indictment, waiting for adjudication for violent crimes. As a result of these cases, over $12,000 and primarily U.S. currency was seized and 4 firearms. The important thing about that, as we talk about, is as you saw in Chief's pie charts a few slides before this, is so many folks are repeat offenders. We're constantly dealing with repeat offenders with violent crime. We have a case study on this young man, Charles Austin Alger Jr., born in 1995. So he's a validated gang member, 5 Super Crips, covered in tattoos. A lot of them are gang related. He's got 20 plus violent crime charges between 2013 and 2019. When we do the math, that's from the day he turned 18, essentially. He has an extensive juvenile history. We're not going to get into that. He has 4 felony convictions of those in state court. For those 4 convictions, he received 2 years and 1 month in the state system. He's been recently arrested again for possession of a firearm by a felon, and because of the robberies he was charged with, it affected interstate commerce, so we were able to charge him under the Hobbs Act. Now he's currently serving a 10-year day-to-day sentence in federal prison. So that's how our partnership works with the federal government and federal prosecution and getting violent criminals off the street. Here's another case study. This is a very relatively recent event. Kel and William Locklear, again, pay attention to his date of birth, born in 1989. Extensive violent history dating back to 2007. As soon as he turned 18, again, as a juvenile, he has an extensive juvenile history as well. He's a very violent young man. He was charged with first-degree murder and alphabet crime in 2008. That stands for assault with a deadly weapon, inflicting serious injuries with intent to kill. Wow. So he was charged with that in 2008. That case was actually, he shot 2 people. 1 man died, the second person lived, and he was the surviving witness. And just prior to that case going to trial, that individual unexpectedly passed away. So he ended up pleading to a manslaughter charge. For that charge, he got 8 to 10 years in Department of Corrections. He ended up serving the 10-year max on that because he was so violent in prison, caused so many issues in prison, he didn't get out early. He did his full 10 years. Okay, so now look at his release date, 5/14/21. On 6/2, 19 days after he was released after a 10-year sentence, this picture on the right, the gentleman with the bright green shoes and Mr. Locklear went into this house on Milton Court. They did a home invasion because they were selling narcotics out of the house. We did a follow-up search warrant, ended up with narcotics, currency, and guns in the house. But they went in there and violently attacked the people in that house, shooting and killing one resident and shooting a 16-year-old girl. The gentleman in the green shoes ended up dying as a result of exchange of gunfire. And Mr. Locklear fled. He was wanted. We were able to locate him hiding in a trailer with gunshot wounds down in Lumberton about 2 weeks later. So he's currently pending prosecution. Here's a man that was out for 19 days and is shooting someone else. So we constantly deal with repeat offenders. We can't stress that enough. And we're looking for him, being he is a violent offender and previous felon, we'll be looking for federal prosecution for him for a minimum of the possession of a firearm by felon, as you see in the picture right here.
Thank you, Major. I'm gonna also bring up Major Ramirez. He's over our patrol, so he's over the 3 districts captains, and he'll share the next discussion. No, you're low.
Okay, good evening, Mayor. Alrighty, so these numbers here, as you can see, are dealing with how many firearms are confiscated. The bottom right-hand corner, you see 425. So in the first half of the year, primarily the patrol, and their functions out there in the field have recovered or seized, just, got out of the street 425 firearms. They're broken down as confiscated, as evidence, as found property, and others, and you see the chart for yourself. So that tells you that, out there, the minute we come across a firearm, we definitely, take it to our custody for whatever purpose, legal purpose, to get it off the streets. This little map here shows a bunch of little red dots, and this is a visual of how spread out some of our postal servers are when it comes to violent crime. So for this little snippet here, July 20th to July 27th, a random week in the month of July. Not the 4th of July, it's a random week. We see 46 total incidents during a 7-day period of just, a volume of calls for service related with gun violence. Are those 34 actual calls that people said shots are being fired? And you notice again from the dots, they're completely spread out around the entire city. So that tells us that we have to definitely be mobile and be able to respond to different areas of the city. From the west to the east, south, to the north, completely spread out. It's all 3 districts. Hamilton had 10, Cross Creek had 15. Probably you can't see the bottom part of that, but there's another 10 in Central. Again, it's all spread out. Now I got a little story to tell you real quick. Remember earlier, Chief Hawkins mentioned that some individuals are on EM, and some questions have come. I'm sorry, that electronic monitoring. People on electronic monitoring, we have a unit that actually monitors them, and whenever there's any activity, we do follow-ups. Well, some citizens in the Rose River corridor called in the fact that there was a lot of violent crime happening, particularly the 2100 block of Rose Hill Road. Even a crime stoppers tip came in. So this happened pretty much during the beginning of May. By May 26th of this year, officers started to conduct surveillance. The traffic stops. When they conducted the traffic stop, leaving the house, this particular house, they recovered a Drake was a small AK-47 looking firearm, and narcotics. Well, that continued giving them probable cause. They executed a search warrant. They had an idea who was living there. And the individual that was living there was on a electronic monitoring. Even though he was released because he was a violent criminal, he had shot 2 houses up, and he got released on electronic monitoring. He continued doing crime, unfortunately. So, of course, when we took him into custody, in that house, we found 95 pills of MDMA. MDMA is the typical, what they used to call back in the day, your weight pills, MDMA, 95 of those. Crystal meth, 20 grams, marijuana, 241 grams, oxy pills, and cocaine. And of course, 3 guns. Glock 19, Glock 26, Glock 27. I give you those numbers because those Glocks are compact little Glocks that you used to conceal and carry them on the street. And of course, almost $5,000 in US terms. This is an individual, 20 years old, that was out in EM, still continuing to crime. When the crime cyber suit came in, within 3 weeks, we were on that house. And got seizures.
Thank you, Major. Thank you, Major. So, thank you. They'll stay for a second, just in case there's any follow-up questions. So just figure the example of why we make sure we target repeat offenders, because we know that they'll keep offending. So let's talk about the crimes against property. We've seen a decrease in burglaries, larcenies, motor vehicle thefts as we've been investigating. We've seen an increase in robberies. So that's another thing we focus on, because we know that's a violent crime as well. And so overall, crimes against property is down 18%, as mentioned before. Here's a narcotics unit accumulation for the first half of the year. We've seen an increase in seizures of cocaine. Even though we haven't seen heroin in the first half of the year, we don't have it on here. We've had some seizures of methamphetamine. We've had an increase in marijuana. Fentanyl, we've had most of the guns was taken out of one large seizure warrant that we had. And we've had and this is just the narcotics unit alone. This is not department-wide. This is just focused on what the narcotics unit has been doing. This is our clearance rates. The numbers that it says national 2019, that should be updated by the time we get to third quarter. We wait for the FBI to update those numbers. They typically don't come in until 2020. But remember, these numbers are the investigative efforts of our detectives, follow-ups, and arrests that are made from the individual crime report. Traffic fatalities, although this is the first half of the year, it is showing a little bit lower than the previous year. But I know just because we stay on top of our fatalities happening in the city, this number for the third quarter is likely going to be up because we've had a lot of recent fatalities happening with motorcycles and along on our city streets in this third quarter. So although those numbers are showing down, we are definitely vigilant of what's happening in our community as far as fatalities. Our 911 calls, we've seen an increase in the first half of the year for 911 calls coming in, a little bit over 6,000 more calls coming in. Our response times are within our the national average expectation. So this goes to our Internal Affairs Office Professional Standards. We've seen every use of force report where we have an incident, we review them. We've had less use of force reviewed this year than last year. Our internal departmental investigations, a little bit one more than last year, and we've had a little bit less citizen complaints from this year, same time period as last year. Staffing, this is the budgeted sworn staffing. You'll see that our allocations were down, and that's not a secret. We've had the initiatives that we've been pushing. We've had in the first half of the year, 13 laterals hired successfully within the second quarter of this year. This is the internship program. We get into our community engagement. I kind of want to share this with you. It's going to be on here. I think it's below. They made a video, so this is kind of important. Let me see if this clicks on. I'll get back to you. I'm showing at the end because it's kind of important what the interns have done. Another participation is Special Olympics. We participate annually in the Special Olympics. Pinwheels for Prevention. This is a national event, as you know, where we support DSS and Child Advocacy Center for Child Abuse Awareness Month. And I'm going to get to Operation Ceasefire. I'm going to introduce you to our Ms. Spikes will come up. This is our community engagement individual. Let her introduce herself to you and tell us a little bit about Operation, what you're doing.
Good evening. I am Laderi Fikes. I am the new community engagement coordinator for the Fayetteville Police Department. I'm not new to Fayetteville, but I am new to the police department. I spent about 15 years prior here working with various nonprofits, families, youth engagement, developing partnerships was my specialty. One of the things about Operation Ceasefire, the community engagement coordinator role, is that true community engagement is not solely just showing up and being present. It is listening to your citizens, it is getting citizen input, it is also hearing our ideas and seeing what we can all put together. So here we do movie night. We go into communities where oftentimes there have been upticks in crime. We want to be a presence in those places. The officers on the streets are doing their things, and then there are other roles that we can do so that we can shore up those neighborhoods. We're not a social service agency, but we do provide them with resources. All of our movie nights, we invite local agencies to come in and provide information because whole communities are often our safest communities. And so that's what my approach is to community engagement. We've attended everything from the NAACP Freedom Fund, the Juneteenth events. We have been almost everywhere around the city, setting up tables. We have a new video that's come out talking about stopping the violence. There are all sorts of innovative things that we're working on that we did in this last quarter. And there are lots of things that we have coming up soon. So hopefully when we come back again, I'll have even more to share with you about community engagement.
Thank you, Matt. So let me find this one because even though it was supposed to be on the screen, I know Jeremy probably put it on the somewhere here of our intern. No. Looks like we are going to have to just show that.
We'll send it out to you.
Yeah, we'll send it out. We just have to send it out. Well, so I can just say we'll send it out. But basically, the assignment was for the interns to create their own video of talking about themselves, and they did an outstanding job. We'll show it to you when it goes out on social media. But they did an outstanding job. It's an own advertisement, and they were very innovative. I was pretty proud of them. So, all right, I'm ready for questions.
Chief, thank you for that. That was certainly some interesting information about the number of repeats, which, you know, I think as we were briefed during our internal, external committee reviews, criminologists understood that the Fayetteville City Police doesn't control all of the aspects that contribute to this. If only 3 out of 20 of the homicides were first timers, that means 17 out of 20 people. So how are we working with other partners who handle probation, parole, who handle some of the social services? I think we need some investment in some of the things that mitigate the recidivism. I know Reentry Council, Reverend Garner and his team, but how does the police department work with agencies like that to try to slow that down?
Yeah, so we know we absolutely need probation and parole as well as ALE, all the partners, because they have a resource that's different than us. Like probation and parole, we work with them because we know at times they can get in the house if someone's on probation, where we don't have that ability to do that. So they're always invited to our ComStat meetings. We always stay connected with people who are being released, trying to be aware of who's coming out in the community. So we have a great relationship with them. I know they're probably either also strained because of COVID and their ability to get out in the community, but we definitely have a good relationship with probation, parole, and any other partner within our community.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Hare and then Ingram.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, you made a statement about someone that had an ankle bracelet on and they made a movement, or they were doing something and you all, I guess my question is, if a person has on the ankle bracelet, that's what it's called, correct?
That's correct. It's like electronic monitoring.
Yes, that's what I wanted to say, electronic monitor. Then is it anything within that electronic monitor that triggers that this person is doing something he or she should not? How does that work?
Unfortunately not. The only one that is have something, and they're in the midst of cashing out splints, is domestic violence situations. That is the only one. Other than that, the electronic monitor allows us to backtrack, allows us to say who's in the area and then start pulling data. There's a lot of people on the electronic monitor, and then there's different electronic monitors, like probation and parole might have their own. We have ones coming out of our court system. So there's multiple electronic monitors that we don't have access to, but because of the partners, we'll ask those questions. Do you have anyone who's on monitor that was in this area at the time?
But do you know, that in monitoring them, do you know where they're located?
Yes.
Where they are traveling in the
That's correct.
city?
Yes.
Okay. My other question is this, and I get this quite often at my community watch meetings. We know who he is, or who they are, the citizens speaking. They get arrested. We think, oh, they've been breaking in houses. We think they're gone for a while. And maybe the end of the week or however, it's quickly we see them again.
Yes.
That is one of the most frustrating things, not only for my residents, but most definitely for myself. I don't know if that's in our hands or the police hands, but talk about that, because citizens are very, very frustrated about that.
It's very frustrating for us, sir. It's absolutely frustrating to have those efforts, but we don't control bond. We don't control what happens when they go to court. We don't control how long they stay in jail, how they're released. All we control is our portion, which is the arrest and taking them to jail. After that, it's out of our control, but it's frustrating for us.
But doesn't your input, does it play a role in saying, now this person has been doing this in this particular community for 2 years. We have caught him. I mean, does that play a role in keeping?
It will play a role eventually, because you remember it's the first step. But by the time you get to the whole trial, you might be able to add that, but the initial one is solely on the elements of that particular crime while they're being arrested.
Yeah, well, I want you to know, folk are not happy with.
We are people, sir.
Right, yeah. All right, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Ingram.
Thank you, Chief Hawkins. Where is our relationship in terms of working with the county sheriff's department and our judicial system? How can you kind of outline what that, you led into it when talking with council member here, but can you kind of give a greater detail of what that partnership looks like?
The relationship with the county, we assist whenever we can as far as the sheriff department, they assist us. So we have a great relationship with the county. In regards to our restrictions with the court system, we're only restricted to what the law says we're responsible for. So, you know, we can say it's my personal feelings, a lot of my officers' personal feelings, but our frustration if, you know, we put somebody in jail within a certain amount of hours, they're released. That's a frustrating feeling, so we don't have any control of that. And unfortunately, the only thing we can do is frustrate.
Okay, and then I feel like my next question is kind of a moot point, because when we are talking about how we get here, and even when I think that was Captain Spadarico, was that you?
Major Spadarico shared 2 case studies, yeah.
Just got out 19 days and had already, and I've seen that happen many a times with, you know, just by living here. But I'm wanting to know, how are we leading up to when someone is getting ready to exit the prison system or wherever they are? What type of meeting of the minds or what have you comes together and says, okay, well, these violent crime members, as Councilmember here mentioned, they're getting ready to get out. They've been seen many a times doing XYZ. Some may get, get house arrest or get some type of leeway where they may have to wear an anklet, but they can go certain places within the city. But what type of guidance or head of notice is given to ensure that we are kind of not babysitting, but we are kind of, keeping our eyes on some of these violent crime members, or I'm not going to call them members, but individuals who have a history of violent crimes, where are we at with that? How do we catch it? We can't catch it until it's done, right? But how are we saying, okay, this person's out, they're now on our radar? What does that look like?
So I think that's an excellent question, because it's going to come down to what the word "we" is absolutely right, because we may monitor as a police department, but what is, we have programs like reentry. We also have programs of being aware in the community, your family member, they've been serving in full term sentences because, they're acting up in the prison system and they can't get out early. You know who these individuals are in the community. But at the same time, we have to operate constitutional. That person has served their time to the max. And constitutionally, we can't violate their rights. But at the same time, the we comes into, I think, us discussing community issues and saying, what can we do? How can we prevent it? How can we have measurements? And, that's a discussion for all of us as a community. That's a discussion for all systems together, including our community, to say, what are we going to do about it?
Okay, city manager, this is my final question. From what I've heard thus far from the council members and Chief Hawkins say, to a certain greater extent, a lot of this is from what we see in programs, and that is within the county. Now we police and we can make the arrests and we can put in when we hand over what the charges may be. And we saw within a case not too long ago that some charges were laid out and our officers did, their due diligence, but whatever the DA applied is whatever they applied. Has there ever been an instance where our sheriff's department or county have come and presented what actual programs are in front of what are available and processes for situations where we can get a full picture of the other side as well? Because I think that's what we don't get. We get what our police force is doing, but there's a whole nother side to this.
Yes, ma'am, and I hate that the mayor had to step out briefly, but I do know from conversations with him, and he shared this with the other council members too, that relationship between city government and law enforcement and then the county and the state is something that he is looking to explore in a kind of symposium with the district attorney, I'll probably invite the sheriff and the attorney general as well. Because you can look at the arrest, and I think that the staff who are here besides the chief can tell you y'all aren't arresting any fewer folks. I mean, but even though our crime numbers are down, there is a disconnect between when we arrest someone, take them to the jail, they're either bonded back out, awaiting trial, which is their right, or in the case that we saw with COVID-19, where to try to prevent a community spread in the jails or in prisons, that there were certain individuals who were deemed low level, who were released back into the community to try to, again, prevent COVID in the jails or prison. In addition to that, there were people who were on probation or on parole, and their probation officers or parole officers may not have been able to do as many home visits as they would have liked to during the pandemic. And it all creates a perfect storm of people who want to do bad and need to be locked up, that there are at times some impediment, but the impediment is not the work of the men and women of the police department, as you said. So thank you for that. And I know that the mayor is coming back in, and he may wish to elaborate on that point about the efforts that he is taking to try to connect with the district attorney and the attorney general along those same lines to try to make sure that we understand that this isn't something that the police department or the city can arrest our way out of, that we need the community and we need the full criminal justice system as well to all be moving in the same direction.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Yes, I have a meeting later this week with Attorney General Stein, as well as District Attorney West and the acting U.S. Attorney Eastern District. So we'll brief council on some of the state, federal, local collaborations that they share, but look forward to working to kind of help bring whatever resources we can to deal with it.
Excuse me, Mr. Mayor, can you list those entities again, or those individuals again, please?
Yes, ma'am. So you have the Attorney General, Josh Stein. You have the District Attorney, Billy West. And you have the Eastern District U.S. Attorney. His name escapes me. He's the acting Eastern District Attorney. Can't remember his name.
Okay, and will Chief Hawkins and Sheriff Ennis Wright be a part of that as well?
Can't speak for the sheriff. They were invited, but I did talk to the manager, who I think has notified the chief to be in on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Council, I apologize. I had to return a call from Mayor Wilmington. There's some ongoing things going about the restrictions. So I'll go to Councilmember Banks McLaughlin. But council, I just want to be mindful. We do have 5 public hearings. We have a very, 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 very robust agenda. So please keep your comments short. I know public safety is important to all of us, but we've got a lot to do tonight. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Thank you, Mayor. As we talked about, I guess this is more geared towards community involvement. First, I do want to welcome aboard our newest. I forgot the position. Was it community engagement? Okay, so welcome on board. And I kind of wanted to discuss that. When we do know how important community engagement is in our community, and I know some communities, they do want to get involved, but just for those who are listening, how can one establish a community watch in their area? And another reason why I ask, because when violence and things are going on throughout our city, it's very important for our citizens to reach out to the police officers, dial 911, and there's so many ways that they can do it as far as it being anonymous. They can, report it anonymous. They can even text 911, and some people are not even aware of the ways that they can reach out to our police officers. So again, my question is just for those that are interested in establishing community watch meetings, a community watch, how do they start? How do they start there, or where do they start?
They can either go on the website, connect with us. They can send me an email. We will connect to give them instructions with our crime prevention and our community affairs unit, and hold their hand as they establish their own community watch. But we'll first try to make sure there's no community watch in their area that already exists. They can either join, but we'll definitely hold their hands. Just either go to the website or if cut to the chase, they can send me an email and we'll make sure they're going to get taken care of.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
Councilmember Hare.
Thanks, Mayor. I was just wondering if,
Michael.
well, my light is on. I was just wondering, Mayor, if since we supported the 11.05 item, is it possible for Councilwoman Banks McLaughlin to just kind of tie in her concerns or questions for that item in this one now, since we have the police chief up in front of us? Just a question, just a thought, sir.
Okay, since Councilmember Banks McLaughlin didn't really get a detail about public safety, so the proposal was with her item something that since we're under public safety between police and fire now, that you can ask whatever question it was.
Well, I didn't have a question. I had a motion.
Okay, all right.
Now, if you guys want to, if it's the will of the council, if you want me to add my item right underneath Chiefs, I have no problem presenting that.
No, if it's a motion, I think you we'll leave it at that separate item. All right, thank you, Chief, we appreciate it. Sure, we have a lot more questions. We have Fire Chief, is it Fire Chief Hill? Is he coming, joining?
Thanks, everyone. Chief Hill.
Hey, Chief. Chief, how you doing, sir?
Good evening. Good to be back before you again, but I think I was here. We'll take a quick look at our second quarter. It's gonna look a whole lot like the first quarter. So we'll pick right back up where we left off with. Start with the state of the department. We currently have 2 vacancies. The only reason we have 2 vacancies is because during this quarter, we graduated 18 firefighters from one academy and turned right around and started another with 14 firefighters. 4 lateral hires and 1 reinstatement. So that's almost 40 firefighters we've hired since December. Really, we don't have much of a recruitment problem, but we have a related issue I think it's just as egregious. We'll get to in just a minute. Another highlight for the quarter is I was able to fill 2 deputy fire chief positions through promotions. Deputy Chief Ronnie Willett and Kevin Dove, both over 20-year veterans of the department. Didn't bring them tonight because of the space was a little bit limited. But as we go on, we'll start hearing a little bit more from them and a little bit less from me. Take our mid-year look at our diversity efforts. If you look at, notice the top line in the graph, this speaks to our diversity in our hiring efforts. You'll see so far this year, 55% of those firefighters we've hired have been non-white males. So we're doing really good with our diversity recruitment. If we'll focus on the bottom line, which is the trends our overall minority makeup of the fire department, the line is relatively flat as compared to the recruiting line, which tells us that we're not retaining firefighters at the same rate that we're attaining them. So we definitely have a retention issue for our employees. We're seeing most of our firefighters leaving prior to 3 years of service. So I've had some conversations with the city manager. We'll be working with the budget office and HR. And hopefully come with some proposals and some retention strategies that we can layer in. Hopefully, if not before the next week. Call volumes real quick. The red shows our call as compared to the same period over the last 2 years. Approaching 7,000 calls is typically what we expect to see. 2020 was an anomaly. We went through a period with COVID, community saw calling 911. The call distribution or the incident types, the pie graph on the right still shows the majority of our calls are EMS, nearly 70%, 4% are fire. So that's the graph that really won't change a whole lot. And you can see we're on track for just less than 30,000 calls this year, which is typically what we saw outside of the environment. Quick look at our response times. Very consistent. What that just tells us is within 7 minutes of someone dialing 911, we're on the scene 90% of the time. Right now, a little bit in our fire response is low frequency, higher consequence. We know, unfortunately, we had no fire fatalities this quarter, very minimal minor injuries. Our dollar save ratio stayed above 90%, which was our goal. And we'd like to keep a finger on the pulse of vehicle fires. Not only are we guardians of life and property, we're also guardians of your insurance premiums too. So they take a hit sometimes. We keep our eye on those. Focusing in on structure fires, 63 fires that had some type of damage, which is about typical of what we normally see. Majority of them are unintentional. Some leading cause still here to be cooking in nature. 1.6 million in fire loss, which was really on part of what we saw last quarter. 15 incendiary fires, and there were 7 arrests made during the quarter. And we're still doing a pretty good job keeping the fires confined to the room that we're finding. Probably the most significant fire we had this quarter was probably the Aquarama pet store. Significant for 2 reasons. Number one, this made up about half of what you saw in property loss for the quarter. But real quick on property loss, when I give you property loss numbers, I'm just talking about the assessed value of the brick and mortar of the structure. There's an element that we're cognizant of, but we haven't never really way to measure. It's the economic impact, specifically on commercial buildings when we have fires in them. We have a loss of ad valorem tax revenue, we have sales tax, someone lost their business or livelihood, employees. So there's a really huge impact on commercial fires outside of the numbers that they get. This was significant in another reason. Last time I mentioned the Clarion Hotel fire, which we narrowly escaped a huge loss of life fire to our civilian population. There, just to make the good Lord. Similar issue here, but this hit a little closer to home for us. First arrived, the firefighters found heavy smoke coming out of the building. They knew there was an apartment in the building immediately to the right. You see in the corner of the first picture in the top left. First crews went in, tried to find the fire and keep it in that building long enough that we could do some searches. The fire was on the second floor. They were trying to find a way to the stairwell. The second floor collapsed on them. They became disoriented. Their escape route was cut off. And, you know, they were really in trouble, a really dire situation. Fortunately, they were able to get on the radio and let us know what was going on about where they were at. We sent some rescue crews in and found a way to cut their way to them and were able to get them out. That's a good gut check for the fire department. You know, we know this is dangerous business, but when you have incidents like this, when they happen to you, they're defining moments. So we didn't waste the opportunity. Our firefighters do a really good job, and they get a lot of experience in residential fires, but we don't have a lot of commercial fires for them. Commercial firefighting is totally different than residential. So we did some good after-action reviews, took some lessons learned, put together a training program. You can see the pictures on the right. We were able to gain access to a commercial structure that was under renovations that fortunately still had air conditioning working. So during July and we'll go some into August, we put together a training program based on what the experiences we had in the pet store. And we're at all our firefighters through some drills and some practice. So again, trying to turn what could have been a very negative, sad situation into something really positive for us. Bread and butter, the majority of our calls are EMS in nature. Cardiac arrest were up just a little bit, but that's directly related to the increase in overdose costs that we had for the year. COVID really overshadowed the pandemic we're having with opioids right now. The county received some grant funding. Purchased Narcan with, we were beneficiaries of that. Great news, we received 150 doses of Narcan. Sad thing is, before I talk to you again, it will be used them all. Hazmat calls, call volume typically the same as what we experienced last quarter. We didn't have the natural gas releases we thought we'd have with all the utility destruction going on. Contractors did a really good job with locating the gas lines before we did. Probably the most significant hazmat call we had during this quarter was the gasoline tanker return on Country Club back in April.
Yes.
About 9,500 gallons of gasoline spit out on the road. Two biggest takeaways is your firefighter stood needed gasoline using the job of life to cut the driver out. He's alive today to call it. Second big thing is if you're familiar with the area, there's a creek that runs through the area. The gasoline did make it storm drain into the creek because of our hazmat team and the booms they put out, the dam and dike, none of the gasoline left the immediate area and the watershed at all. So. Fire prevention, ramped up the efforts this time a little bit higher numbers than what we saw last. With plan reviews and inspections and like I said, and fire code violations that were discovered. Most common violation types continue to be extinguishers and exit corridor violations. Our fire life and safety program. Remember, we were awarded a SAFER grant back last year. We got those firefighters out of the academy. I was able to leverage some staff capacity, rearrange some positions. In fact, we instituted 3 fire and life safety educators in our community this production vision. So you see firefighter Nick Hammond, Harold Ignacio, Demetri Bowen. They're going to become the face of the Fayetteville Fire Department. So you'll be seeing them out at community events and stuff as you're going around. Here they are with Chief McLean early in their assignment, carried them to the UNC Burn Center. Meet some of the patients there. That's a great way to level set and keep them worried on the mission that they'll be facing. We talked about the CERT camp. A few meetings back was a huge success. They've already started planning next year event. Smoke alarm blitz, over 600 smoke alarms were installed in the 71st school over there back in June. They started working with corporate communications, producing videos. We really want to increase our social media presence. Now they have a little more organizational capacity. Typically, we run a fall safety day out at the mall. This year, Commissioner Keith has partnered with us, the County Fire Chiefs Association. We're looking to change that a little bit with maybe some firefighter competitions and things in October. But the location is changing. It looks like it's going to be Fayetteville City. I'm still not confident we're going to be able to pull it off with the increase in COVID. cases that we're seeing now, but we're still going to do the planning efforts for that. And more to come once we have that solidified and think it will be good. Real quick from the FY 21 budget, I just want to give you a view of what $2 million gets you. New fire engine going to Station 2 on Amon. New ladder truck going to Station 6 on Cliffdale Road. This ladder truck is a little bit different, new for us. Instead of just having a ladder that stops at the tip, it has a platform on the end. And we do have a platform downtown, but this one changes just a little bit. Instead of the basket being on the front of the truck, the basket comes off the back of the truck. The hinge point's different, which gives us a little more maneuverability, especially in some of the tighter apartment complexes. So again, a little bit different. Well, it's not quite the tiller when you see the firefighter has to drive from the back also, but we're getting close. Also, in the last presentation, I told you that I would have a new patch revealed for you. See the new branding scheme. What we knew going away from the Fayetteville script, that we would sooner or later have to make some revisions to our patch. We were updating our uniform contracts, so logistically it was a good time. So the department has been working, coming up with several designs, several surveys, several votes, and the patch you see in the middle is what the department decided. So you'll slowly see us transitioning from the patch that I'm wearing today to be what's uniform. All right, we are working on fire station number 4. We've been talking about it since like forever. We've finalized the floor plans and finalized the site plans. What we have here is just a basic elevation, which is just the massing of the building. Don't really pay attention to maybe the colors and some of the detail, but the general size and shape of the building should be very similar to what you see here on the screen. We're told that we should be ready to go to bid by November, if not before, at latest November. Hopefully by the end of the year, we'll be coming back to you asking to award a contract construction. So this project is moving. We did receive some good news. DOT has agreed to accelerate some of the plans that they had on Bray Boulevard, which will allow us to have bi-directional travel on the boulevard and not have to pay for some of the median work that we originally thought we would have to pay for. So good news with that. Just real quick, some highlights. We had a little lull in COVID cases. We were able to get back in the community. Outside of the military environment, Fort Bragg, how many times as a youth do you get a chance to climb around in a helicopter? We were able to make that happen for some of our kids. You can see it in the downtown area. Captain Winter just proved out some basketball lessons from 2 young guys. And I'm sure this is their NBA career doesn't work out, they're going to come look at the fire department. You can see Firefighter Ignacio took Sparky out to Cliffdale Rec Center. Be really interesting. Bottom right picture was kind of interesting to me. Is 2 firefighters meant to put up a smoke alarm and somehow got raved into putting together a high chair. That's not a service that we provide, but I would have been disappointed had I not offered them. Again, we really want to focus on smoke alarms. The number one thing that you can do to protect your family. Give us a call. We'll come out anytime, day and night. We'll cost you a dime. Any smoke detectors will be in your home as you need. And last but not least, we did receive a little recognition from the county for our assistance with presenting firefighters to help with some vaccination clinics. Subject to your questions, that's all we have.
Thank you so much, Chief. We do have a question from Councilmember Ingram and then here.
Thank you so much, Chief Hill. The first question is just kind of for the listening audience, and I wish I would have asked Chief Hawkins, but I think she said it many a times before. Earlier, you talked about how we are experiencing issues with retaining firefighters, correct? And so one of the things I recently did, I started polling some elected officials in North Carolina, and I asked a question about what was their numbers looking at within their public safety, not just police, but also fire. And just for the listening audience, we are not the only city that is experiencing where police officers and firefighters are not necessarily staying and just not wanting to work anymore. But I do believe that our Chief Hill and Chief Hawkins are doing, what they can to make sure that we retain our employees that choose this line of work. My real question is, earlier, Councilmember Kingston mentioned about fire victims having access to the RAP dollars, but I do know that when there's a fire, Red Cross is dispatched. Do they have certain dollars that will equate to helping them out with maybe rental assistance? I know there are hotel vouchers maybe, but are there dollars that can help with that? I cannot. Okay, I can hear you now.
Okay, I really hate to speak for Red Cross, but typically what they provide is just very short-term housing, which is hotel vouchers. Most of the time when we have fires in apartment buildings that maybe the hotels are connected with other hotel apartment systems, and they'll find housing in other apartments. But Red Cross primarily focuses on very temporary solutions.
So not necessarily anything to help out for the home that has been pretty much destroyed due to fire.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hare.
Thanks, Mayor. Chief, I want to give you a thumbs up, give the council a thumbs up. Over the years, it had always been a concern that we wanted our fire department to be more diverse. And I was very impressed with the numbers that I saw tonight. And I know we did a number of things, application board members, those that are looking at application, things along that line. I probably can't recall all of them as you can, but to see where the big jump had changed of supporting that our fire department looked like our city. I give you a big thumbs up for that, and thank you for your hard work for that initiative.
Well, thank you. Staff has been really committed to the recruitment efforts, and they are paying off. Now we just need to work on keeping.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Kingston.
Thank you, Mayor. I was just gonna respond to Councilmember Ingram's inquiry. The Red Cross, it was there and working with the individuals that were displaced. The apartment complex are moving those that they can that have openings in other properties. In addition to providing vouchers for clothing, food, transportation. I think the immediate need at the time was someone needed glasses. But I had been in touch with Phil with the Red Cross, and they were actually wonderful, being able to be on site and make those immediate needs happen. So yes, thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Presentation. We appreciate it. Look forward to speaking to you next quarter.
Yes, sir.
Good work. Thank you. All right, Council, as we move into public forum, this is a time that any Fayetteville resident may have input and voice in what goes on in their city. Due to policy restrictions, the forum will not last longer than 30 minutes. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes to address the council on issues related to the city of Fayetteville. Individuals speaking at tonight's public forum should be signed up to the city clerk prior to the start of tonight's meeting. We are here to speak on items that may be on tonight's agenda. Under public hearing, we ask that you please reserve your comments until the public hearing. So when your name is called or you're recognized virtually, we'll ask you to please state your name and home address for the record. Let you know when your time begins. At 30 seconds, you'll be notified, and at the red light, your time will have expired. Due to policy restrictions, again, we're unable to extend the given time. So with that, Madam Clerk, please call the first speaker.
Yes, ma'am. We have 8 speakers this evening. Our first speaker is Ms. Adams.
Ms. Adams, are you there?
She's
not?
She's not present.
Okay.
Our next speaker is Ms. Patricia Nevins. Okay.
Ms. Nevins, are you there?
Star 6.
Ms. Nevins, I think you're still muted. Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, thank you. We have you now. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my name is Patricia Mebane at 5451 Hubble Drive, Apartment F, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28314, Hope Loop Commons, and United Management 2 is my community. Thank you for giving me this time to bring attention to concerns I wish to voice regarding the responsibilities of our state, county, city, and regulations of any other agencies that make and enforce the laws and regulations that property owners, investors, management, and tenants have in place to protect all parties involved. It is hard to force a tenant to read their leases in its entirety, but I am certain leases are worded to give specific information for the benefit of all parties involved. So with that said, where is everyone involved lacking? Money and profits want to be made as quickly as possible. Defective or out of code date products and materials are not properly identified for materials used in construction and maintaining properties and equipment, and lack of properly trained and adequate staff to identify, enforce, and rectify problems in a timely manner. All of us in the chain can be affected if problems are not dealt with properly and timely. We can see and feel COVID and its variants raging our populations. Weather changes and natural disasters also subject all of us to unnamed problems that must be dealt with. Any and all of this can and does affect our lives and livelihoods. Rules, if in place or added, should surely assure safety, good sanitation conditions, and peace of mind to all involved. Fines can be implemented from the top of the chain, property owners down to the residents, and enforced to bring about the necessary results in a timely manner. So some caring and some responsible residents do not risk their health or cause unnecessary accidents during cleanup, where staff and uncaring residents fall short in their responsibilities. Neighborhoods, owners, investors, and the citizens involved get bad publicity, unnecessary lawsuits, and fines that cause loss of life, income, a place to live, health, and sanitation problems. Please look very carefully at all points of concern brought before you and all that you may already be aware of. We do not want any of us to become a tragedy like Surfside, Florida condo collapse. Thank you for listening, and I am looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Madam Clerk, please call your next speaker.
Yes, sir. We seem to have technical difficulties with the timer. I'm going to run it on my phone. So our next speaker is Miss Karen Davis.
Ms. Davis, are you there?
She's star 6 as well.
Ms. Davis, if you would try to press star 6 and unmute. Can you hear us? Ms. Davis, can you hear us?
You don't see her?
She's there. She just hasn't unmuted yet.
Can we
She's
come
on the
back?
phone.
Prior to her.
Would you like to come back to
Please.
us? Okay, next we have Mr. Charles Matthews.
He is not on.
Okay, next we have Mr. Curtis Brown.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Mr. Brown, can you hear us?
I sure can. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. I want to speak on behalf of the, I know that our agenda was actually pulled tonight and rescheduled for September. However, the issues that we currently have are not only, it not only involves a developer, it also involves the city and our DOT. And I'd just like to hear some of those concerns. And if the city can assist us in any way possible, I'd appreciate an opportunity to entertain that. Number one, we know with a new development, we're going to have a traffic impact to our location. But more importantly, we're asking the city to see if in fact you can perform a traffic analysis to determine whether there is another ingress or egress into Greystone Farms. We think that there might be some possibilities, but what we don't know is whether that's a city function, a DOT function, a developer function, or a combination thereof. So we'd like to see if we can get an answer to that. Secondly, we believe that this new development will create a tremendous stormwater runoff problem, similar to what you witnessed in 2016 in the Liberty Hills area. So we're asking, can the city perform an analysis, an assessment to at least give us some assurance that we're not going to be confronted with the same type situations that Liberty Hill is currently facing and has faced since 2016. And the last thing I'd like to bring up is we understand that all of you work extremely hard, and our issue being pulled off the table tonight. And I understand it may have been by the developer, but I think that there are still concerns that should have been heard tonight. So I would ask if the city council would relook and maybe 27 September, if we could perhaps get this discussion on the table prior to 27 September. That seems a bit far. We already know what the issues are, and we already know what the community is actually interested in seeing happen as it relates to this new development. So with that, I yield back the floor. I thank you for your time, and I appreciate all that you do for our city.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Mr. Fox? Is Mr. Fox on?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Andrew Early?
Not sitting.
No, ma'am. He's not on. Okay. Miss Kim Bennett? Okay. Miss Bennett, can you hear us?
There you go. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, thank you for having me tonight. My name is Kimberly Bennett. I live at 2540 Matthew Thomas Circle, apartment G in Fayetteville, 28304. I am also in United Management Properties, which is West Fayetteville. Miss Patricia and I actually stay in the same complex somewhat, but we're just expressing concerns with the sanitation rules and regulations. Nobody's getting back with us with certain things. So I'm just really reaching out to the city, and hopefully, someone can reach back out to me just to let me know who I can contact for complaints, for issues, and so forth. I know I had heard Councilman Ingram's talking earlier and was expressing her concerns about people moving out of apartments and so forth. But someone has to know why people are moving out. What are the issues? Other apartment complexes I had lived in Fayetteville, it always seems like it's somewhat same issues and the same concerns with the managements and the people that owns the properties, and they're not being held accountable for anything. So I believe it's time for people to be held accountable. People can't just afford to jump up and go to a new place just because something is not going right in the place that they're living in. Also, I want to say something about the community police communications. I believe even where I live at, with certain complexes where is high crime at, I believe that the police should patrol that area a little bit. They could police the area. They can just sit for a little bit. Maybe get out their cars and mingle with some of the tenants And with the ones that are doing bad, it would actually start pushing those people out. So we as a community will feel safer of sending our kids outside. We can walk outside in the middle of the night or so forth. But it's, I just need that feedback. I just need someone that I can just go to and express my issues to for these issues to get resolved. And I thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I hope to have a feedback come back soon.
Ms. Bennett?
Yes. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Could you please give your address again?
Yes, ma'am. It's 2540 Matthew Thomas Circle, apartment G as in girl. This is in Fayetteville, 28304. And I do know that Courtney Banks McLaughlin is our councilman in District 8. So I am looking forward to reaching out to her probably tomorrow with just an email, just to kind of like touch base with some of the issues too, maybe a little bit more in detail. So maybe hopefully she can help me out with some things too.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett.
Thank you.
So do we need to go back to Ms. Davis?
Let me try. Okay, if you would ask her to star 6.
Ms. Davis, can you star 6, please?
I'm not getting anything, no ma'am.
You're not getting
No
anything.
changing.
So I guess we can move on, City Attorney? Okay.
We have no further speakers.
Okay. No further speakers?
Ma'am.
Thank you. So we are going to move on to 11.0, the public hearings.
Mayor Pro Tem, did you want to take a break before you start the public hearing?
City Attorney, that's a great idea, and thank you. So let's take a 5-minute break, 5 to 10 minute break. Thank you.
All right, council, we'll call our meeting to order.
Need one more.
On Zoom, aren't we?
You're right.
We got 5.
All right.
I'm here.
All right, item 11.0 is the public hearing. Individuals desiring to speak at the public hearing must have signed up to speak with the city clerk by name and address before 7 this evening. 15 minutes will be allowed for each side of the issue at the public hearing. Individual speakers will be limited to 3 minutes each unless by previous arrangement, single spokesperson is designated, in which case the spokesperson may use the entire 15 minutes. When the city clerk calls your name, please be acknowledged remotely. Clearly state the name and address for the record. You may then begin to address the city council. We will receive a 30-second warning, and then at the end of your allotted time, the timer will ring and you'll be notified that your time is up. At this time, we'll go to Mr. Harmon.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mayor and Council. First case we have before you tonight is P-2141. It is a rezoning, conditional rezoning request. It's actually an appeal from a zoning commission denial. Property is owned by Vishnu Patel, 3-Star Fayetteville LLC. And the property is located at 454 Cedar Creek Road. This is a conditional rezoning, 2 properties from limited commercial and single family 6 to a light industrial conditional zone. It is 4.01 acres in their request, and this is in Councilman Ingram's district. Again, just to give you an idea of where this is located, just to the south of this property, you can see where Plymouth Street crosses Cedar Creek Road. You've got that, I guess, Carly C's shopping center right here at the bottom, little strip center beside of it. Here to the north of this property, you'll see in a minute, these are industrially zoned. And you'll see in a minute that even though it's these two properties altogether are 7.5 acres or so, but they're only looking to rezone about 4 acres. And there's a dividing line somewhere around in here that you can see of the part that they want to rezone for this. Basically, it's for a truck stop. This is an abandoned gas station. It's been abandoned for several years now. And they're looking to turn it into more of a truck stop center. This is the blue-green outline is the 4.1 acres that they're thinking to have rezoned. This area over here is an additional 3 acres. It's part of their property that they don't want rezoned. They want to keep it at the SF6 zone. As you can see, the gas station is zoned commercial already. And like I said, to the north is heavy industrial zone property. Here in the back, between all of these right here would be where transfer trucks would be able to park in the back lot. And from the transfer trucks to the edge of their property line here is 100 feet. So they've got 100 feet between where the closest trucks would park and their parking or their property line. Then a drinking pond here in the back as well. And then just refurbishing the site that is currently out there. Land use plan, there are some floodplain. They are keeping tractor trailers and stuff out of the floodplain. The detention pond would be in it. But as far as our land use plan goes, it's calls for a kind of a commercial redevelopment on most of this property. And really, this property over here is residential, but most of it is in that same category. This property does fall within 2 overlay districts. It is in the airport overlay district, and it's in the Cape Fear overlay district. The Cape Fear overlay district does not prohibit a truck stop within that overlay, and the only restrictions that the airport overlay district would have for them would be in regards to their detention ponds. They can't use wet detention ponds because they typically attract birds. So that's one of the categories of things we can't do in there. Just a couple of photos of what the property currently looks like. Like I said, it's been abandoned for several years, and you can tell that in these pictures. Then just around the property, there's some undeveloped, there's some industrial warehouse, this is just to the south, it's the first residential lot off of them. Again, this is the same site plan that you saw a moment ago. It was on the zoning map. They have listed some conditions. Obviously, this is conditional zoning. They wish to, the existing canopy on the gas station, they wish to remain in place and allow to be rebuilt in the same location if destroyed or taken down, despite it being over the 50-foot front setback. So in the light industrial zoning district, there's a 50-foot front setback. This being an existing use really doesn't mesh with that too well. So just asking to be able to use what's already there on the property. Final approval with parcel recombination, vegetated buffer that exists along the creek in between the SF6 and subject property will remain or augmented to 100% opaquency, and development will be limited to the use of a truck stop under the light industrial district. That's the only that's the only light industrial use that they'll be able to do on the property. Planning staff did recommend approval. Felt that the proposed zoning map amendment did implement policies adopted in the comprehensive land use plan and the strategic operating plan. That the uses permitted by the proposed change in zoning district classification and standards applicable to such uses would be appropriate for the immediate area of land to be reclassified due to the existing zoning and uses around the property. And that the proposed change we felt was in accordance with existing proposed plan for the area, and that there were no other factors that we saw that were substantially affect public health, safety, morals, and general welfare. I will add that there was one person in opposition that called in at the zoning commission meeting. I don't believe we've got anyone in opposition that's signed up to speak tonight. Mr. Mayor, if you would hold any questions of staff until after you conducted the public hearing.
So, Mayor Pro Tem, we have one speaker in favor, Mr. Jonathan Charleston.
Okay. John, you open up the public hearing?
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna open up the public hearing. Is Mr. Charleston on the line or is he here? He's on the line.
I am on the line.
Okay, Mr. Charleston, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. And I want to thank you guys for that wonderful public safety presentation. I learned a lot. Your public safety professionals are doing great work for the city. In this particular zoning request, conditional zoning request, the point that I'd like to start out with and hope that you as a council will have an appreciation for is the property owner can reopen the lot, reopen the facility and begin serving fuel to commercial vehicles, consumer vehicles, and do all the things that you normally see with a convenience store, including selling diesel fuel for commercial vehicles. The whole point behind requesting the accommodation is because they're under the current zoning classification, the commercial trucks could not park on the lot in the rear of the building overnight. And so that is the challenge. So again, the use would not change at all. It's going to be a convenience store, a fueling station for consumer vehicles and for commercial vehicles. And so that's what we have this set up to do. The only reason we need to change the zoning to a light industrial is to allow the vehicles to park overnight in the rear of the building. Now, one thing that's important to point out is that there's commercial uses around the site. To the north, to the south, there's single family residence, which is actually owned by the developers of this property. There is some multifamily, and then of course to the west and then to the east, there's some undeveloped land. As part of one of the conditions, there will be appropriate solid fencing and screening using trees and other greenery. In addition, the developers would certainly comply with all the applicable laws, including any noise ordinance so as not to be disturbing to any neighbors. One interesting point that Mr. Harmon pointed out is that there is at least 100 feet between the proposed parking area and the property line where there will be a solid fence and appropriate screening. Again, the applicant is requesting the conditional rezoning to allow the development of truck parking. It's not a truck stop, but it's really just truck parking in the rear. As I mentioned to you earlier, the current zoning classification would allow for fueling of commercial vehicles, including trucks and tractor trailers and consumer vehicles. Then, of course, the owner seeks to combine various parcels that the owner has in that location. I might point out that the conditions that the owner would ask this council to place on the development, as Mr. Harmon indicated, was that the existing canopy over the fuel pumps would stay in place, and in the event it was destroyed, would be allowed to be rebuilt despite being, over the 50-foot front setback. Final approval of the rezoning will come after parcel recombination. A vegetated buffer existing along the creek would be in place, a solid fence along with the vegetated buffer, and the development will be limited to the use of truck parking, because essentially that's all the property owner seeks to do, is to get the light industrial so that they can have their vehicles parked behind the building overnight as part of this business enterprise. As the staff stated in their report, there are absolutely no factors that will have any material effect on public health, safety, morals, or general welfare. The proposed change is in accordance with the existing or proposed plans for the area for the reasons I have stated. The uses permitted by the proposed change in the zoning district classification and the standards applicable to such uses are appropriate in the immediate area of the land to be reclassified due to the existing zoning and uses surrounding this property. And the proposed zoning map amendment does implement the policies adopted in the comprehensive plan for future land use and the strategic operating plan. For the reasons stated, we ask that the council grant the request and follow the staff recommendation. In addition, I have Mr. Robert Ballin, who is the engineer that's doing the work for the Patel family at this site. And Mr. Ballin may have a few other points that he'd like to add at this time. Thank you.
We have no further speakers.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Council, any questions, comments? Councilmember Ingram.
Okay, thank you. I have just about 2 questions, and following my questions, I will be prepared for a motion. My first question is, in our legislative text, it states that the property owners, of course, own the subject property and the residential property. I believe that's 502 Cedar Creek Road. Do they also, and I assume that if they did, it would have been listed, but I'm going to ask, do they also own 508 and 514 Cedar Creek Road? Which are the properties directly to the right of 502 Cedar Creek Road?
Right offhand, I'm not sure if they do or not. I know they are zoned residential, but I'm not sure if they
Yes, they do, according to some of the staff.
Okay.
So the same individuals that own 502 Cedar Creek Road and the subject property 454 Cedar Creek Road, they own 508 and 514.
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay, thank you. And then in looking at the back of the property, I understand that they are asking to use that, the back of the property for parking. Right now, as it exists, there is a good buffer between United Management Housing Division that's back there on Duggins Way. Are they looking to trim into that buffer or leaving that buffer where it is?
Back to the presentations.
I'm sorry, I could not, you broke up.
I'm sorry, I'm just getting back to the presentation so I can kind of show you.
Okay.
So here is their back property line. You've got a creek that runs back here off of their property. And then you've got Duggins Way back here. So before you even get to the creek, there's a 100-foot buffer that's in moving between where the trucks would park and their property line. And then you've got the area across the creek, and then the development you're speaking of starts right in this area. So it's probably 200 feet or so, at least, behind where the trucks would be parked.
Okay, so is that a yes or no? They're not going to go into that tree buffer that's currently there. That doesn't look like what I'm looking at. Maybe you need to go to a satellite view. But I understand what you're saying on this view, but so you see, okay, I see where you're looking. Can you zoom in on that?
I am going to try to zoom in a little on here.
And I see it on mine. I just want to make sure. So, okay, it still leaves a
Yeah.
Okay, with
So-
that,
Before you do that, Councilmember Ingram, I need to close this.
I'm not getting ready to make a motion, but I did want to ask for a bit more. I think you answered it. It's fine, but I wasn't getting ready to make my motion, Mayor. But what I was getting ready to say was, when it's prepared, I'll be ready to make the motion. Thank you.
Okay, I need to close the public hearing. All right, now if you have other questions, you can continue. Okay. Council, any other questions for Mr. Harmon? With that, I'll go to Councilmember Ingram.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Madam Attorney, seeing that there has been a specific request, do I need to list those specific requests or just read the recommendation as listed? There were some specific requests. Do I need to read all those specific requests or just read the recommended action?
You mean the conditions?
Yes.
Yes, to the extent that your motion includes the approval of those conditions.
Okay, thank you. All right. Mayor, Council, I would like to make a motion to approve item 11.01, because conditional zoning of 2 properties for limited commercial LC and single family residential to light industrial conditional zoning located at 454 Cedar Creek Road, with that including the conditions of the rezoning.
Thank you, Councilmember Ingram. There's a motion by Councilmember Ingram to approve as stated. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Wright. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Council, I'll look to you for your votes. Councilmember Wright here. Okay, Councilmember Ingram.
Green.
Councilmember Banks McLaughlin,
Green.
Councilmember Kinston.
Green.
All right, motion carries. Item 11.03, annexation request for Coventry Woods subdivision in the south side of McCloskey Street. How you doing, sir?
All right, sir.
Mr. Nash.
Nash. Nash.
Council, David Nash, Development Services Department. We have two areas tonight that have been requested for annexation, both on the north side. This is the first one.
This is your home. Okay, just.
Referred to as the Coventry Woods proposal. The applicant was a person from Mormon Kaiser Reitzel. Request is to annex part of a vacant parcel, very large parcel, that's proposed to be developed residentially. Only part of the parcel, though, is in the annexation request. And that is the part that's south of McCloskey Road. Nothing north of McCloskey is being requested here. It's about 40 acres, 41 acres. The owner is actually William E. Clark. According to some plats we've seen so far, preliminary plats, 112 lots are proposed, but 10 approximately are already in the city. So we'll say this area is that you considered for annexation would have 102 lots. Of course, this is next council district 1. The staff does recommend approval. Here's a vicinity map. Here's Ramsey Street. Everything shaded in yellow is already in the city. There's Greystone Farms, Fairfield Farms, Long Hill Point Apartments. McCloskey Road runs like this. The area shaded in blue is the area that you're considering tonight for annexation. It's only the part of this much larger parcel that straddles McCloskey Road. Just some photos of the area that on the left represents the land south of McCloskey. Some surrounding properties. This leads to I think it's a recreation area owned by the Union at Kelly Springfield, Goodyear. This is Long Hill Point Apartments. Looking at the back of the Lundy River EMC facility out on Ramsey Street. Shops at Fairfield Farm, which is south of this area, and Long Hill Elementary is out on Ramsey Street. This is the plat map I was referring to. Current city limits is shown here in the dark line like this. And these are the lots that are actually already in the city. We're not going to count them in what we're doing here. Another map submitted in the city's legal description map. So we'll go through a few things that we always ask about these areas as we research them. It's contiguous. It's found to be owned by the persons who signed the petition, Mr. Clark. Our departments can provide services, and so can PwC. So the options we see are basically where you would, number one being adopt this area tonight, setting the effective date of August 9th, consistent with the zoning case that you heard earlier, in the consent item. Other options based on different effective dates. Actually, there are 5 options. So we recommend option 1, annex the area effective tonight, based on the initial zoning case you already approved, taken to SF10 in the city. Petition sufficient, meets the standards. It can be served, and budget impact should be positive. That's shown in the Appendix A of your agenda material. That concludes the presentation I have.
Thank you, Mrs. Nash. With that, we'll open the public hearing. Madam Clerk, any speakers?
Yes, sir, we have one speaker in favor, Mr. Jimmy Kaiser.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kaiser, can you hear us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
We can. How you doing?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Doing well, sir.
Great. Jimmy Kaiser, 115 Broadfoot Avenue, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28305. David did a good job of summarizing the project. It's a residential development, be an extension of Fairfield Farms, kind of build out that part of the area south of McCloskey, going back towards Fairfield. PWC will be serving water and sewer. We'll have stormwater ponds, meet all applicable standards of the city. I'll be happy to answer any other questions or comments that you may have. Try to speed this along if we can.
Right now, seeing none, sir. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Jensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So what I am seeing in the notes that we have here, that we are looking at 120 lots. So they are single family homes. Is that correct, Mr. Kaiser?
Yes, ma'am, that is.
So at the end, by the time between the land value and the house and everything, we're looking about $350,000 homes. That's the expected value of them.
I really can't answer that question as far as what the expected value of those houses are. They are building a similar product in Fairfield Farm currently. And this will be an extension of that.
Okay, so this is what we have in the CAM. It says housing units, expected value per unit. So is that not what we're looking at?
I'm not sure because we don't get involved in the actual house construction part of it. The developer builder will be doing that part of it. And we tried to get some rough numbers from them to provide to David for the presentation, but really couldn't get good hard numbers on the product. I think it's like anything in today's world, it will kind of float with the market demands and what is moving as far as where that price point is going to be.
So Mr. Kaiser, I guess what I'm going at then is that what I'm hearing is that somebody could go in there and is it going to be part of the Fairfield Farm HOA of having the ordinance, or is it just going to be a free-for-all of they buy the lot and then they can put a 1,200 square foot home on there, or they can put a 4,000 square foot home on there, or they put an 800 square foot home in there?
At this time, there's only going to be one builder in the development that I'm aware of. And taking the lots down, we'll be building it in phases. We're looking at 250 plus lot phases at this time. That same builder is currently building in Fairfield, but this will be a separate HOA. The stormwater ponds and everything will be separate. So this will be a separate entity, a separate development. It will not be part of the Fairfield Farms development.
But it backs up to them, correct?
Yes, it does interconnect with them. It actually provides a secondary entrance for Fairfield Farms, which currently only has one entrance.
So has anybody spoken with the Fairfield Farms HOA and are they aware that there will be a second entrance? Because this is kind of the first I'm hearing about it.
I have not had any conversations with the HOA. I do not know if the property owner or the builder have.
Okay, so I guess what I'm coming at that I see in our CAM that we're looking at $350,000, expected value per unit, and I'm hearing that that might not happen. I'm also hearing that there will be another exit going in and out of Fairfield Farms, and that's going to cringe on the neighborhood and not aware whether the neighborhood is understanding what is happening. So I see that Councilmember Kinston would like to talk, but after that, I am prepared to, make a motion.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Councilmember Kinston.
Yes, ma'am. Thing that I have is for the residents at Fairfield Farms, is when we put up the signs to indicate about the zoning, was there anything placed on that side where the residents would be notified of the potential development?
Planning zone, Forest Planning Zoning Division Manager. We sent out notification letters for the rezoning for everyone within 500 feet. And we placed a sign at the location of the annexation and the rezoning. And we did not receive any responses back regarding those notifications.
So, Mayor,
Make sure she.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilmember Kinston.
Okay, thank you. So that did answer my question, but it didn't. So my question is where the new entrance is going to be. Was there any zoning or notification placed at that entrance so that the residents in Fairfield Farm would know that that would be included in this request? Because to me, that would be important. That's going to be a whole entrance that they should be aware of. So I want to know, was there a signage placed there indicating the changes that would occur for that entrance?
No.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
He said no. No. What about that? Is your mic working?
It says it's on.
Councilmember Kinston, is your question answered?
Yes, thank you, Mayor.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem Jensen.
So, Councilmember Kinston, great question, and thank you, because I guess the sign that you put up, that the residents, that were 500 feet around them. So what I know the area that we're talking about, and I can, in my mind, I don't think that a lot of people saw the sign because it's on the side and the back of the neighborhood. So if there is not, any further questions.
What letters sent out?
They said that letters were sent out to
Surrounding property.
owners.
Mr. Hewitt, you have something to add to this?
Yes, sir. I just wanted to clarify for staff. What is in front of council at the moment is whether or not to annex the parcel into the city or not. And that is primarily designed so that I assume that the developer can get access to PwC water and sewer. I also, so that's one. And then number two is the proposed zoning that is being recommended and requested, similar to the zoning that is currently in Fairfield Farms.
Yes.
And so, okay, there's no, so it's the same zoning that is currently available in Fairfield.
That's correct.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that as it relates to, I think Mr. Kaiser said, he can't speak to what will ultimately be built, but the zoning would support exactly what is in Fairfield Farms. And because that's what they're requesting. And in a situation like this for annexation, it has not typically been our process to require like a community meeting adjacent, but we did that on another item where the developer requested a delay to do that. If that is something that council would like for us for future annexations, then when they come before council for something like this, we can strongly suggest that the applicant in bringing it forward would do that. But that was not something that traditionally we have done.
Thank you, Mr. Manager, and I understand exactly what you're saying. And the part that has got me moving back on this is the fact that whether it is a good thing or a bad thing to have another way in or out, there are some people that like neighborhoods and they are in a neighborhood because there's only one way in and one way out. You know, not to belabor what I'm getting ready to do, but you know, I got this seat because this is basically what kind of happened in my neighborhood. I'm not saying I'm against the development, but I feel that the neighborhood needs to know what is happening, and especially that there is another entrance and another way to come in and come out. So what I am going to ask for in my motion is that we bring this back in 30 days, that we have time to let the neighborhood know that there will be an entrance coming in both ways. They might be thrilled about it. I'm in my motion, I need to stop, I'm sorry. So I make a motion that we postpone the annexation request for the proposed wood subdivision located on the south side of McCloskey Road, consisting of 40.69 acres and being the property of William E. Clark, related to P 21-37 initial zoning, until we can talk to the homeowners there.
All right. Okay, the motion by Mayor Pro Tem Jensen to delay or to request it go back, or any specificity in the timing?
With 30 days, 30 days, please.
All right, so there's a motion to table item for 30 days. It's seconded by Councilmember Kinston. Any discussion on the motion? All right, Council, I'll look to you. Oh, did we, I need to close the public hearing. All right, so let me close the public hearing, and the motion on the floor is to table for 30 days. Any discussion?
Would that be to bring it back the 13th of September?
It's 30 days, so.
Yes.
Is that good? 13? Okay. Well,
No, but can we do on the 22nd?
27.
all right, so, all right, so the motion is to bring it back on the 27th. What, the discussion on the motion, Councilmember Wright?
Yes, so does this set a precedence of future land development based upon this, or is this an individual situation that we're taking into account because of the information? I heard the city manager mention if the city council desires to do it on every occasion, this is something we have to put into policy. So where are we looking at? Is this opening up something for future reference? City manager?
It's really for the council. The main issue that I think the developers are interested in is making sure they have access to water and sewer. And they have to petition for annexation in order to get that in the MIA, and for sewer in the MIA, to get water, but sewer. And if it is a desire, particularly when it abuts to an existing neighborhood, like the two that we have in front of us tonight, where they would either be going through or be adjoining an existing neighborhood, then staff can strongly suggest, or if it's council's direction to specifically request it, that we can ask that they have a community meeting or reach out to the HOA to at least make the HOA aware of their plans, and that there will be a public hearing and that they are available to come to a public hearing. So staff will do more than just do various notices or signs, if that's council's interest. But but the public. What do you mean? I'm not talking about public hearing.
All right, are we good with that?
Sure. I see the attorney mentioning some things. I want to make sure we're legal.
She's the president of the North Carolina.
Yeah, we gonna be all right.
We
See, y'all gonna try to kill me.
Ain't that right, Madam President?
Oh, that sounds good.
All right, then we got.
Yes, the manager, I misunderstood something the manager said. Let me clarify.
He clarified it?
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
You can have Secret Service do anything with him. All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Discussion on the motion has ensued. Council, I'll look to you for votes on this item. Those in favor? Great. All right, Councilmember Kinston,
Green.
Councilmember Ingram,
Green.
Councilmember Banks, McLaughlin.
Green.
All right, motion carries. Thank you so much. See you September 27th. Item 11.04, annexation request for properties 5980 Ramsey's hot tonight.
So move to approve.
Everybody wants to know.
I don't know.
Where's that?
It's the housing piece that's, supposed to trying to build.
Juan Valdez, is this you?
Yes.
Have a motion. Madam Clerk, we have speakers.
Adjourn.
No?
No.
Open and close the public hearing. All right, I'll open it and close it. Juan Valdez, it's on you, and then I'll go to Councilmember Hare.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
Are you ready?
Ready to start unless I was hearing that they've already made a motion.
I can make a motion.
Yes.
Yes, the public hearing been closed.
Put your mask on, David. Go home.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that the annex request for the two properties located on 5980 Ramsey Street and a portion of 6000 Ramsey Street, consisting of 0.99 acres and being the property of GCKMP LLC related to P21-38 initial zoning that we approve.
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Jensen, and there's a second by Councilmember Hare to approve. Any discussion on the motion? All right, council, I'll look to you for votes to approve. Those in favor? Green. All right, council members Ingram,
Green.
Councilmember Banks McLaughlin,
Green.
Councilmember Kinston, you okay?
Green,
All right.
green.
Green, okay. All right, motion carried.
Don't forget the,
All right, yeah.
Have 11:05.
I have it.
someone said adjourn is all.
No.
Okay.
Second. Item 11.05, added agenda item. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin.
Yes, thank you. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just want to make sure. Okay, so as Chief discussed in our presentation about public safety and the deaths amongst the accidents in our city, and as safety being one of our primary goals in the city, as well as community involvement, which that's one of the concerns that brought me here today with communities, residents reaching out to me, specifically in James Creek subdivision. These residents have expressed their concerns for the safety. And I do appreciate them for being and willing to be involved in the community with their expressing their concerns. I've sent several photos to the council members where there has been several accidents over the last few months. In fact, one of them was just last night. And in these areas, it's off of Hope Loop. This is where speeders are speeding, going around a curve and losing control and driving off into residents' backyards. For those that are not familiar with that area, these are homes with their backyards are faced towards the roads, causing, so when drivers lose control from going around a curve, they end up driving off into the residents' backyards. All of these homes have been damaged. The photos that I sent, you can see that all the homes that have been damaged are just only at the James Creek subdivision. So they're all in the same area. Also, the photos that I share are images of majority of trucks that have lost controls coming around the curve. This has been an ongoing public issue concern. Although it was mentioned that this is a state road, because it's not the first time it's been brought up. Although this is a state road, I am asking for an actual official action from council to place guardrails of some sort, such as warning signs, to be able to notify the drivers of the sharp turns. Are y'all able to hear me still?
No, because.
Yes, ma'am. We hear you, Councilmember Banks.
But Mayor Colvin, every time somebody says something in there, it interferes with what she's saying.
But yeah, well, that, you know, the ones of us that are here can hear her, so
Well, could you
remotely
guys
makes
hold
it.
their
Yeah.
comments while she's talking?
Hey. Councilmember Banks McLaughlin has the floor. If you need to be recognized, please raise your hand. Councilmember.
Okay, thank you too, Councilman. I'll try to kind of briefly go back through it. Again, like I mentioned before, we just talked about this through chief presentation as far as public safety and especially the death that has been amongst due to accident. It's very important that we have community involvement. In fact, that's why I'm here bringing up this agenda item, because it is a concern to the residents when it comes to public safety, specifically at James Creek residents subdivision. James Creek subdivision is off of Hope Loop for those who are not familiar. The area has a sharp turn off of Hope Loop where speeders or individual that has lost control coming around the curve has drove into individuals' property because their homes are faced the streets. The back of the yards are faced the streets. Again, for those that are not familiar with the area, it's on a face, the back part is faced up against the road, and they also have a sidewalk. I sent out emails earlier today about 10 something. I sent out emails to the council members with images, and the images shows where vehicles, majority of trucks who have lost control coming around the curve. This has been an ongoing public safety concern. In fact, an accident happened last night. This is not the first time I've had this conversation. I do understand that this is a state road, but I am seeking for official action from council to place some sort of possibly a guardrail, a warning signage, reflectors to be able to notify the drivers of the sharp turn, because as of right now, there's nothing there. There's no street lights. And in these areas, these are where our residents walk, jog, ride their bikes. And these are good residents. They shouldn't have to worry about their children or their loved ones being killed by a vehicle that's driving into their backyards while their children are playing and their loved ones are in the backyard. I shared 2 photos, which you can clearly see that 2 vehicles drove into a yard where a few steps away, there was a play area swing set. Another one was a pool. Then it was another image where it was another play area. It's getting worse and worse.
Councilmember Banks.
Yes.
We're gonna have to bring this in. So what's your ask?
Okay, I'm bringing it in. Thank you. So this is a public safety. I don't think that we should continue to prolong it because that's what's been taking place over the last several months. And Lord forbid that another person lose their life or their property is damaged. So tonight, my ask is to get support from council to place a rail guard in that area, or some type of signage so that it can notify drivers when they're coming around a curve that there's a curve, because again, there's nothing there stating that it's a sharp curve. There's no lights or any signage or anything, reflectors, it's nothing. So that's my ask.
So just to reiterate, it is your ask, or would you be amenable to if council instructed the traffic service to assess it to see what it needs versus us trying to solve that? Or did you want your motion specifically for those?
That was my ask. I've had conversations. I don't think that a survey is needed. I think
not a survey. No, ma'am, not a survey.
Ask me a question, Mayor. Hold on one second. I don't think a survey is needed. Again, I think that it's just something that needs to be there, rather a signage or a guardrail notifying, because again, there's nothing there at all.
Okay, all right. So there's a motion on the floor as stated. Is there a second?
Mayor Coleman, I have a question first.
Ma'am?
Can't discuss till you have a second.
Yeah, we will need a second for it to move forward to the discussion phase, Councilmember.
I'll second it.
Okay, so it's motion by Councilmember Banks, seconded by Councilmember Kinston. Discussion, Councilmember Kinston, you have a question?
Yes,
Oh,
I have.
I'm sorry, Councilmember Dawkins has been flagging me for.
Mr. Mayor, the city is not the controlling authority in this situation, so her discussion is moot. What the recommendation is, she can write an email, describe the activity, send it to Councilmember Wright and myself as representatives for the city on the Fayetteville Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. And then what we would do is we would convince Larry, Councilmember Wright and I would have to convince FAMPO to get DOT to review this intersection. I think she has very valid concerns. If anything, we need to slow things down, but we can't just put guardrails up where on a state maintained road. So that's my guidance, is that she generate the concerns of the community, send them to Councilmember Wright and myself. We present to FAMPO, and we can have her come to that meeting when the presentation is made. I think she makes a very compelling argument.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Dawkins. Any other discussion on the motion? On the,
Yes,
thank you, Ms. Lawson. This is the motion, Councilmember Kinston.
I have a quick, I just want to say one thing after Councilman Kingston finish.
Okay, I've got you after Councilmember Ingram. Okay, Councilmember Kinston.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. And Councilmember Dawkins did kind of address the question that I had, is if the city can just add anything on the NCDOT road, because that is a part of the motion. I don't want the motion to die, but I do want to make sure that we can get the information that is needed in order to get the attention that needs to be on that road. So I'm gonna ask if Councilmember Blanks McLaughlin would consider remaking the motion itself. Thank you. And before I do that, and before I do that, even though NCDOT does control the road, the other question is if the city of Fayetteville can add any signage there without having to go through NCDOT. If you can confirm that.
Right.
That is my question for discussion.
Mr. Manager, can you answer some of these professional questions, about what our engineering department does, please?
We can ask the question. If we can't, we can ask them to do it. And if there have been as many wrecks and there have been there, then NCDOT would probably not be opposed to signage one way or the other. So if we can't do it, they can. And if they won't do it, then we'll come back to council and report that.
All right, Councilmember Ingram and then Banks McLaughlin.
So my question has been answered actually, but following Mr. City Manager Hewitt's question as to at making the ask, do we need to formulate that you're going to make the ask, or you understand to make that ask?
We've got it.
Okay, and then my follow-up question is, would you be prepared to bring that back as soon as the answer comes, or at the next council meeting?
We will do both. Given the issues that are at hand, I would ask Councilman Wright and Councilman Dawkins to support us also, seeing if we couldn't get Drew Cox, our NCDOT representative, to come on a twice annual basis, maybe quarterly, at a work session, just because these issues keep popping up. And using Zoom, I'm hoping that he or someone on his staff would be able to pop in and tell us the criteria that they use when evaluating whether to put in a guardrail or signs, and how best for residents, including the council, to get them information about dangerous intersections or issues like this that are on state roads. So I think we can do both. I think we can, as soon as we have an answer, we'll report back to council. And if it's before a regular meeting, and we'll do it also at a regular meeting as well, as soon as we get information.
And just lastly, Mr. Manager, to that direct, what you just said, the council made that request before we went from break, before we went to break, our July break, we made that direct ask. I would say it was some meetings before, but we made that direct ask to see if we could get our NCDOT representative to come to our meetings. So I don't know. I hope you have something soon about that.
Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, and I thank you for that. I want to pull back my motion instead of the rail guards, because I think that is something that possibly the NCDOT might need to look into. They have been contacted on a few occasions, but as of right now, if the city can at least place a signage, because with NCDOT, this might happen a year from now. So my motion, I want to amend my motion to remove the guard railing and to just put the signage as of right now. And then I will also allow city manager to do his part as far as communicating.
All right, so there's an amended motion as stated. Councilmember Kinston, you seconded that. So is that friendly amendment acceptable? And are you still seconding that?
Yes, Mayor, thank you.
All right, council, look to you for your votes. Those who are in favor. Councilmembers Banks McLaughlin.
Green.
Councilmembers Ingram.
Do I have time to ask a quick question?
No, ma'am, the discussion's over on that. We'll come back after this is concluded.
Okay.
What's your vote?
Green.
Green. Councilmember Kinston.
Green.
All right, those opposed? Councilmember Hare, Councilmember Tim. All right, so motion fails. So Councilmember Hare?
No.
Chris.
Follow you. Chris is next.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we direct city manager and staff to get in contact with NCDOT, send them the photos, the details concerning this important safety issue in that area, and allow them to come back with what NCDOT can do, signage, guardrails, to address that issue in there.
Mr.
All right, motion by Councilmember Davis. There's a second by Councilmember Hare. Discussion, Councilmember Ingram.
Why is that a motion if it was already stated that that's what was going to be done? And I asked the clear question. Wait, let me finish, please. Please let me finish. I asked a clear question to the manager. If we needed to formulate that, and the manager said it's a go. I asked that clear question.
Councilmember Ingram, the problem is the motion is as stated by the person who makes it. And she was very specific as to what her motion included, which was to put guardrails or a sign. So I think we're getting to the same, excuse me, ma'am, we're getting to the same place. Right now, we have a motion on the floor. We're in the discussion phase, germane to this matter, not the last matter.
It wasn't about the last matter, Mr.
Well, what I'm saying is, whatever your comment is, needs to be pertaining to the motion that is on the floor here. So you have the floor.
That's exactly what I am asking. You're not listening. I literally said this same motion that he just asked, I asked to the manager. The manager said, no, we do not need a motion on it.
Unfortunately, a motion was on the floor. You asked your question. And
okay, Mr. Mayor, you go right ahead.
So Councilmember Ingram, that's enough. All right, so council, we've had a motion on the floor.
Yes.
We've discussed the motion. We have a council member that hung up the line, I guess, once. We didn't get it. All right, council, I'll look to you before you vote.
Mayor, I have my hand raised.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I do also.
Councilmember Kinston.
I did not clearly hear the new motion that was on the floor.
Councilmember Davis.
Councilmember Davis.
Can you please restate it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Mayor and council taking into consideration the details shared by Councilman Dawkins I'll make a motion that we allow city manager, direct the city manager to work with representatives of FAMPO to bring back the details in order to address this issue on the NCDOT road concerning signage, warning, and guardrails. Bring it back to council so that we can take action on it.
All right, that's
Mayor.
Councilmember Kinston, did you hear that?
It, in the motion, it said to bring back the details. There was no time frame listed.
That's right.
It'd be, we don't meet every 3 months, so it could be 3 months.
90 days.
The time frame will be 90 days. FAMPO meets every 3 months.
Can you all ensure it's on the next agenda for FAMPO?
Well, we need city manager can generate the email and to me and Larry, and we'll.
All right, so the next available FAMPO meeting, I'm not sure when that is. But this is discussion on the Davis Hare motion. Any further questions?
Yes, sir.
Discussion points? Councilman Hare.
I'm thinking we ought to maybe fast track that a little, and with the emails and reaching out to our representatives. I mean, I'm just saying, that's an easy ask, to ask our DOT representatives.
Yeah, so
Councilmember Wright.
yeah, based upon that comment, FAMPO, have members all over, the state, the district where we in. And based upon, we meet every 90 days, there are issues all across our district, just like this one here. And so we have to generate that information in order for it to become a priority with the FAMPO board to see if the DOT could expedite it in the first place. So that's going to take time when you deal with DOT. So we're going to do the best we can, move as fast as we can, because it's a safety issue. And
Sir.
we're concerned about that.
Well, Council, this goes back to.
I have a question. I can't.
Yes, ma'am, I have you down.
Okay.
This goes back to the original statement that as a policy board, we say what we need done, how to get it done. Execution comes from the professional staff. Okay, so us trying to determine whether it needs a sign, a guardrail, that's not really in our lane. But if there's a will of the body to do something, which is what we do, and then they will bring back the way how to do it, how many accidents have been reported, what they recommend, because we don't know. I'm not sure, notwithstanding Mr. Davis, how many traffic engineers we have on the board. But, I'll go to Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, and then council will ask for votes on this.
Okay, first,
I'm sorry, Councilmember Ingram, and then Banks McLaughlin.
So I heard something about a time frame. I don't know which councilman brought that up, but I'm gonna go back to the question that I asked of the manager after I asked about if we needed to formulate this. I said, how soon could you bring this back to us? Would it be as soon as the information is prepared, or would you bring it back to the next meeting? And the manager just said, whichever occurs the quickest. So I'm just truly trying to figure out if he stated all of that. And then I'm also hearing Councilmember Dawkins and Councilmember Wright speak about FAMPO, which I do agree. Yes, get FAMPO involved, but Councilmember Davis's motion states the manager's action, and Councilmember Wright and Councilmember Dawkins are talking about what the board of FAMPO can, and I understand how all of that works in together. But I, from my understanding, we really don't need a motion on this because the manager just stated he will make the ask. He will bring all this back, which whatever occurs faster. If tomorrow they say they can come out, then tomorrow we'll know. But if by the next meeting we have something, I understood it that the next meeting we will know. That's what I understood the managers just tell us, and also tell us we didn't need to formulate this. So if Councilmember Davis is asking something specifically of the FAMPO board, I get it. But if he's asking something of the manager, then he just told us we didn't need to formulate it, and he just told us how soon he can bring it back.
Beverly.
Now, Mr. Manager, if I'm wrong or if I heard something else, then tell me.
It wasn't quite like that. The question has been called, which means that the debate phase is over. So council, I look to you for votes on the motion. Those in favor?
You didn't let me speak, Mayor.
He called for a question, Councilmember Banks for vote. Those opposed? Councilmembers Ingram?
You didn't let me speak.
He
said-
called for a question, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, so that means the debate ended.
But you already had me on a list to speak.
I did. It also meant the debate ended. So we're voting now. So those in favor, again, hands. All right. Councilmember Ingram,
Red.
Councilmember Banks McLaughlin. Councilmember Kinston.
Mayor, I'm gonna always go with public safety, and because of that, I am gonna go ahead and say green.
Thank you. All right, Councilmember Banks McLaughlin, your vote for the record. All right. All right, motion carries. Madam Clerk, I guess you'll review these
What was the
extensive notes.
vote for Banks McLaughlin?
I'm not sure. I've asked twice. Is she still on?
Then the votes will be in affirmative.
All right, so motion carries. Those numbers here. All right, motion adjourned.